Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started by just welcoming all of you guys. Welcome back. Nice to see you guys. Welcome to those of you guys that are new. Welcome to everyone joining us online as well. What we're going to do today is start with our meditation like we do each morning. We'll start with the chanting, move into the meditation, and then come out of the meditation with the chanting as well. And then afterwards, I'm going to move into a talk on the Eightfold Path, starting with the three universal truths, the Four Noble Truths, then the Eightfold Path, which is the core central teaching of the Buddha. This is the path to enlightenment. And then we're going to take our lunch break, of course, and then afterwards I'm going to teach you meditation this afternoon so you can learn in-depth meditation. And of course, we'll take a mid-morning break as well. So if you'd like to join for meditation, and you're welcome to chant along, and now then I'll come back in with the guidance. Arahang Samma Sambuddho Mahakawa Bhutang Mahakavanhang Apivateyami Savakato Mahakavata Dhammo Namang Namasami Supatipano Mahakavato Sāvaka Saṅkho Saṅghang Namami Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Namo Tassa Bhagavato Arahato Samma Sambuddhassa Iti piso Mahakava Arahang Samma Sambuddho Vicacaranang Sammuno Sakhato Rokavitu Anutero Purisa Namasati Satatawa Manusanang Bhutto Bhagavati. Okay, with the lower body and hands and arms comfortable, in the upper body erect, just close the eyes and start breathing in through the nose and out through the nose. Here you're just looking to establish the breath, a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. Not forced or controlled, just a gradual inhale through the nose, experiencing the full breath. And then, whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Your breath may not match up with the guidance that I'm providing, and that's okay. This is your practice. I'm just here for guidance. You can use this voice as a reminder that whenever you get to the next inhale, breathe in gradually through the nose, developing a nice, natural, steady, consistent breath. And then whenever you're ready, exhale out through the nose, experiencing the full breath. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. Once the breath is well established, start fixating the mind on the breath, either the sound of the breath coming into the nose or the sensation of air moving over the skin into the nose. The breath is the present moment. Fixate the mind on the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. With the mind fixated on the breath, whenever you notice that it moves off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. No need to observe the thought, label it, judge it, analyze it, or even try to figure out where it's coming from. Whenever you notice that the mind is moved off the breath, cut that off, let it go, and come back to the breath, the present moment. Breathing in and out. Breathing in and out. I'm going to be quiet now and let you do this work of focusing on the breath, cutting off and letting go anytime the mind moves off the breath. You have nowhere to go. There's nothing to do. No one needs you right now. This is your time to focus on the breath. Breathing in and out. อะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธมหาเขวาพุทธังมหาเขวันหังอภิวาเทมิสวากขาโตมหาเขวตาธัมโมธัมมังนามัสสามิสุปฏิปันโนมหาเขวโตสาวกสังโฆสังฆังนามามินะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะนะโมตัสสะภะคะวะโตอะระหะโตสัมมาสัมพุทธัสสะอิติปิโสมะเขวาอะระหังสัมมาสัมพุทโธวิชาจารณังสัมมุโนสกขาโตโรกาวิตุอนุเตโรปุริสานามาสติสตาตาวามนุสนังพุทโธภะคะวะติ Okay, if you guys would like to slowly make your way out of meditation. Once again, welcome to everyone here at the temple. Welcome to everyone online as well. Nice to see all of you guys this morning. We have a really big topic to discuss today, which is the Eightfold Path. This is the path for all humans to enlightenment. If you're interested in understanding the teachings of the Buddha and actually getting to enlightenment, you would need to know this teaching inside and out, backwards and forwards, left, right, up, down. You're going to need to learn it multiple times. It's not going to be just one time that you learn it and you got it, because remember, you're learning it through investigation and examination. You're then reflecting on it to independently verify whether it's true or if it's false. Then you're going to practice it and implement it into your daily life, and this is where the real results are occurring, because you're transforming your mind. So you're not going to be able to do all of that in just one morning. You're not going to be able to learn it, reflect on it, and practice the entire thing instantaneously. It's going to be gradual training, gradual practice, and gradual progress. In fact, some of the people that are here today and people that are online, this might be their second or third or fourth time actually studying this. So this is something that you're going to need to revisit multiple times, not just in a talk like this, but in the book series that we have, in the audiobook, and all these kinds of things. As we always do, you guys are welcome to ask questions as we go. I'm going to pause at different times, stopping to let you guys ask any and all questions. Here at the temple, you guys have the microphones. That'll help the people online to be able to hear you. And we'll be able to hear you here at the temple as well. All you need to do is press that gray button, wait for the lights to come on, and then hold it up to your chin, and we'll be able to hear you here at the temple, and they'll be able to hear you online. And then for those of you guys online, you can put your questions into Facebook, YouTube, or Zoom in the comment section. I'll be able to see that. And then for those of you guys in Zoom, you can electronically raise your hand and ask any and all questions that you like. So this Eightfold Path, it's a course central teaching of the Buddha. It's organized into these 3 different sections: wisdom, moral conduct, and mental discipline. The wisdom section builds out the foundation that you need in order to build everything else on top of that. Then you've got the moral conduct here, which we'll talk about. This is helping you to understand the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. Certain decisions that you make around your speech, actions, and livelihood that are potentially harmful, that if you continue to do those things, it's going to put out harm, and then harm is going to come back to you. He's teaching you about the natural law of karma, of cause and effect, or action and result. And then there's this mental discipline section where you're training the mind to be able to implement the moral conduct. So I'm going to walk you through step by step each one of these: right view, right intention, right speech, right action, right livelihood, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. We're going to spend our entire morning on this, and we'll take a mid-morning break as well. I'm going to be using the original words of the Buddha to walk you through this, because if you're not studying with the original words of the Buddha, then you're not able to actually learn the true teachings and make your way to enlightenment. You need to be able to actually learn his original words. So we're going to start with right view, which is going to help you to understand the problem in the mind, the cause, the elimination, and the path forward. These are 4 simple statements that you're going to ultimately be able to independently verify what's causing your mind to be angry and sad and frustrated and irritated and all these other discontent feelings. Because the goal on the path to enlightenment, if you remember back to yesterday, is to move the mind to this enlightened mental state where the mind is peaceful, calm, serene, and content with joy permanently. The mind no longer experiences any discontent feelings. You'll notice the focus, the concentration, the clarity, and the deep memory. Your personal professional relationships will really blossom. They will be at ease. You won't be bitter and harsh and hostile, resentful, having arguments in your relationships anymore. You'll be able to eradicate all of that through training your mind. And it starts with what we call right view. So I'm going to help you to see what the Buddha taught with these teachings, and then I'm going to walk you through showing you how to learn, how to reflect, independently verify, and how to practice. So here's the Buddha's words on right view. He says, "In what, monks, is right view? It is, monks, the wisdom of discontentedness, the wisdom of the cause of discontentedness, the wisdom of the elimination of discontentedness, and the wisdom of the way of practice leading to the elimination of discontentedness. This is called right view." So what he's doing here in the Eightfold Path is he's pointing to another teaching, and he's saying that is right view, because the Eightfold Path is a core central teaching that everything else plugs into, and he's pointing to what's called the Four Noble Truths, and he's saying that is right view, because here in that section of right view, it's clear for anybody who studied the Four Noble Truths that that's what he's pointing to. So here at the top, underneath of this line, I've put the top section of the Four Noble Truths from the Buddha. So you can gain confidence that yes, what he's talking about in right view is the Four Noble Truths. So you can see this top section here in the Four Noble Truths. But now what I'm going to do is I'm going to teach you the Four Noble Truths, because the Four Noble Truths is longer than this in the words of the Buddha. But what I've done is I've summarized it in a way that's actually going to help you to learn it and understand it and start practicing it right away. In order to understand the Four Noble Truths, you need to first understand what's called the Three Universal Truths. This is like building blocks to help you understand the Four Noble Truths. We refer to them as truths because the Buddha knew that they were true. I know that they're true, and other people know that they're true too. But in order to get the benefit, you've got to know that they're true. And that's why you're always listening to the teachings of the Buddha with eager ears, so that you can actively understand what it is that he's teaching, and then you can independently verify it for yourself and then start to practice it. So here, I'll teach you how to do this, learning, reflecting, and practicing. This first universal truth here, the universal truth of impermanence. It'll take me just a couple of minutes to teach it to you, and then I'm going to show you how to reflect on it. What the universal truth of impermanence is explaining to you is that everything in the world around you is constantly changing, that things arise, they change, and they fade away. These are called conditioned objects, that there's constant change in the world. You're not going to see this permanent thing for anything that you see, hear, smell, that you taste, things that come in contact with the body, or anything that goes through the mind, like thoughts or ideas. These are all impermanent. They're constantly changing. Okay? There is something called a unconditioned object, because what this explains is a conditioned object. All conditioned objects are impermanent. They arise, change, and fade away. And then there's what's called unconditioned objects. They don't arise, they don't change, and they don't fade away. Enlightenment itself is an unconditioned object. It's a permanent mental state that you experience, and the natural laws of existence. The natural laws that the Buddha described, they don't arise, change, or fade away. They are unconditioned. But pretty much everything else that you'll see, everything you'll find in the world, it's all impermanent. Because remember, the Buddha is not explaining to you the way the world should be. And if everybody practices these certain things, then the world will become a peaceful place. He's not explaining rules and commandments. There's not a bunch of beliefs that you believe that you hope something good happens when you die. He's teaching you how to get to this peaceful and joyful mental state now. So he's explaining to you the way the world is, because the unenlightened mind lacks wisdom of the way the world is. So here he's explaining to you the way the world is that it's impermanent. And you're going to see why this is so important when we get to the Four Noble Truths. Okay, so there's this constant change in the world. Things arise, change, and fade away. So now you don't believe that. That's a little bit of the learning, that I'm explaining that all things in the world are arising, changing, and fading away. Everything you can see, hear, smell, taste comes in contact with the body and things that go through the mind. But now you don't believe what I share. You start to independently verify it on your own. And what you do is you start looking around the world and see if you can find something that's permanent. Because if you can find something that's permanent, you've disproven this and it's not an actual universal truth. So what I suggest students to do is start with something that you're already familiar with, this physical body. You can ask yourself, is this body permanent or is it impermanent? If it's permanent, it's always the same. It's never changed your entire life. If it's impermanent, that means you've been experiencing constant change with this body. So what would you say? Is this body permanent or is it impermanent? It's impermanent, right? From the moment of conception where the egg and the sperm came together, there's been constant change, right? We get taller, we get fatter, we get grayer, we lose our hair, our skin complexion changes, teeth grow in and then they fall out and then more teeth grow in. This is all constant change. We get moles and pimples, our hair grows, we cut it, then it grows again. That's constant change, just like our fingernails constantly growing, right? There's constant change with the physical body. Okay, now what about your relationships? Are your relationships permanent or impermanent? If they're permanent, you've had exactly the same people in your life your entire life. If they're impermanent, you've had people coming and going in and out of your life throughout your life. So are your relationships permanent or impermanent? They're impermanent, right? People are coming and going in and out of your life. What about your bank account? Is your bank account permanent or impermanent? It's impermanent, right? It's going up and down and up and down. Some people's goes up, up, up. Some people goes down, down, down. Just depends, right? Your bank account's impermanent. What about the weather? Is the weather permanent or impermanent? Jack says impermanent. What do you guys say? It's impermanent, right? So we could just go on and on and on. And if you need to do this to be able to see the truth for yourself, you can do it. Walk down the street, and when you see that crack in the sidewalk, that is impermanent. Here in Thailand, the height of the sidewalk changes depending on where you are, right? Some roads have sidewalks, some roads don't. It's the height of the sidewalks changing. There's constant change. You can look at the walls of the temple and see the holes and the marks. This is all impermanence. The planks on the wood floor have different colors and different textures and different lengths. This is all impermanence. Impermanence is constantly around you, right? We started with a certain number of people in class yesterday, and now it's changed. We have different people here. And throughout the week, people will be coming and going. There's constant change all around you, right? So you need to be able to see this as a universal truth and know with wisdom that everything in the world around you is impermanent. This is an important building block when we get to the Four Noble Truths. The second universal truth is called discontentedness. Now, some people translate this to be suffering. If you study the teachings of the Buddha in other places, you might actually see people using the word suffering. The word in the original source text in the Pali Canon is the word dukkha. This is the word that the Buddha used in the original Pali Canon, and oftentimes people are translating this as suffering. I translate it as discontent, discontented, or discontentedness. Because when the Buddha describes this universal truth, he talks about pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant. Okay, what a pleasant feeling is this is happiness, excitement, elation, thrill, exhilaration, euphoria. These are all very pleasant for the unenlightened mind to experience. Then there's painful feelings like anger, sadness, frustration, irritation, annoyance, guilt, shame, fear, stress, anxiety. Very painful for the mind to experience these. And then there's neither painful nor pleasant. I put boredom and loneliness here, but some people say that's quite painful for them. So you could put that in the painful category if you like. But shyness is a good example of that. Or say you were on public transportation and your body was touching the body of somebody else and you didn't know this person. You might feel like, it's uncomfortable, right? It's neither painful nor pleasant. You're just kind of like uncomfortable in that situation. This is the neither painful nor pleasant feelings. What the Buddha is doing here is he's explaining to you what the unenlightened mind experiences, that it experiences conditional feelings, that they're pleasant, they're painful, or neither painful nor pleasant. That based on some condition, you will experience a feeling. If it's sunny outside, you might get so happy or excited. But then when it rains, you might get angry or frustrated or annoyed or agitated. This is a conditional feeling. Based on some condition, the mind's going to have a certain feeling. If your bank account balance is here, maybe you're happy. And then when it goes here, maybe you're sad. Right? This is a conditional feeling. So he's explaining to you what the unenlightened mind experiences, and this is a universal truth, that all unenlightened minds will experience discontentedness, conditional feelings. Okay? So now, again, you don't believe this, you look to independently verify it. You know that your mind is unenlightened, so you look at this and you say, okay, is this what you experience? Look at all the feelings that you've ever experienced in your life and see, do they fit into these three categories? Pleasant, painful, and neither painful nor pleasant. Because if there's a certain feeling that you have that doesn't fit into this, then it's not a universal truth, because it should universally apply to all beings, that beings are experiencing these types of things. This is the discontent mind, the discontentedness, or the discontented mind. Now, some people, as I mentioned, they will refer to this as suffering. I don't use that word because, in my opinion, the word suffering describes the painful feelings really well. But it doesn't describe the pleasant feelings, and it doesn't describe the neither painful nor pleasant, right? When you get so happy or excited because it's sunny outside, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering. Or if you're sitting on that bus and somebody's body is touching yours, you probably wouldn't say you were suffering in that situation. You're just discontent. Right? This is a better representation of what the Buddha was describing when he was using the word dukkha, or at least that's what's in the Pali Canon. So this word suffering, it doesn't fully describe the full spectrum of feelings that the Buddha is describing. It's only describing about 33% of what he's talking about on this important topic. So if you're missing 66% of a teacher's teachings, how could you ever get to the goal of enlightenment if you were missing 66% of the teachings? So I suggest that you use the word discontent, discontented, or discontentedness whenever you're talking about this particular universal truth, or you're reading anything about this particular aspect of the teachings of the Buddha, because it's going to bring your mind to a full understanding of what it is that the Buddha was teaching. Then there's the universal truth of non-self. This is actually a solution or a remedy to one of the pollutions that the Buddha discovered in the mind. Yesterday, we were just introducing you to the 10 fetters, those 10 pollutions that are in the mind that are keeping the mind trapped in the unenlightened state. And I was explaining to you how the goal of the path to enlightenment is to eradicate all these fetters from the mind, all these pollutions, to get them out of the mind. And that's what you're doing in order to get to enlightenment. And the Buddha is providing you the tools and the techniques of how to do that. Well, this universal truth of non-self is the solution to personal existence view. The pollution of personal existence view is where the mind is confused, it has misunderstanding, it has a misperception, it has a lack of wisdom, that it thinks that this body or this mind is you and who you are as a person. It will cling, the mind will cling to the self-image or the self-identity. And now you'll experience conditional feelings, discontentedness, whether you experience agreeable contact or disagreeable contact. So for example, in the unenlightened state, when you have personal existence view, the mind clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived in the world a certain way, clinging to this self-image, if you're perceived in the world the way you want to be perceived, you'll be happy and excited. But when you don't get perceived the way that you want this body to be perceived, the mind will be frustrated or agitated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. So for example, if you've been in a social situation and you've spilt something on your clothing and you were embarrassed, this is because of your personal existence view, that the mind is clinging to this body, wanting to be perceived by others a certain way. And when you're not being perceived that way, then the mind experiences a conditional feeling. Or if you've ever seen a mole or a pimple or a gray hair or a wrinkle and you looked in the mirror and you were shaken up by that, this is because of personal existence view. Or if you're getting a little bit of fat here or there and you're discontent about that, you're frustrated or agitated, this is the mind experiencing personal existence view. I also gave you that example yesterday of, sitting in the mirror, trying to get every single hair in the right spot before you go outside. This is the personal existence view. You can't go outside unless this body looks a particular way, because the mind needs to feel a certain thing and have certain conditions met. And when those conditions aren't met, your mind will be shaken up. So this is the mind clinging to the self-image, wanting to be perceived by others in a certain way. And the same thing is happening with the self-identity. There's a certain self-identity that the unenlightened mind will have. It can be based around your culture, your ethnicity, your sexual orientation, your nationality, your job or occupation. You might cling to these as who you are. And now when somebody says something agreeable, like all Americans are lovely and kind and wonderful, or all Australians are friendly and loving and so sweet, any of these other things, or Chinese people are so lovely or friendly, you'll get pleasant feelings because your mind identifies with that as who you are. But then when you're in a restaurant and 2 tables over, somebody is saying something degrading or disparaging about the place where you come from, and your mind is holding on to this identity. If they say, all Americans are blah, 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 or all Chinese people are blah, 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 or all Australian people are blah, 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 blah. If you hear these things, then your mind's going to be shaken up. You'll be angry. You'll be frustrated because now they're talking about me, because that's what you have in your mind. You're clinging to this personal existence view, thinking that this is who you are. Or say you are in a relationship with a boyfriend or girlfriend, and you assume the identity of I am a boyfriend, or I am a girlfriend, or I am a husband, or I am a wife. And now when you guys separated and now you're single, your mind doesn't identify that way. And you might have felt like you wanted to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. The unenlightened mind, with its lack of wisdom, thinks that's the way to solve the problem, is to hurry up and get right back into another relationship. These are the things that happen when you have personal existence view. If you have a job or occupation, whether it's a police officer, a lawyer, a doctor, a taxi driver, a food server, if you identify with this is who you are, but now you're not doing that job anymore, you'll really struggle and you'll feel like you're not whole. There's people who come to Thailand. They'll say that I'm going to Thailand in search of myself. I don't know who I am anymore. I need to find my true self. Right? They're not going to find their self here in Thailand, because what the Buddha is teaching you is that there is no self. Someone might come here to Thailand and find new friends, new hobbies, new activities, a new job or something like that, but none of that is who you are as a person. So the mind will oftentimes cling to these things, thinking that this is who you are as a person, and now the mind's craving for those things to be permanent. And now when all those things start changing, now the mind struggles during that period of time when all these things are changing. So the Buddha is explaining that there is no self, because if you identify as a boyfriend or girlfriend and now you're single, getting back into another relationship isn't going to solve the problem. The way you solve the problem is you eliminate personal existence view. So therefore, you can be peaceful when you're in a relationship, and you can be peaceful and joyful when you're not in a relationship. Right? You can just maintain your happiness and your contentedness regardless, because being in a relationship is not permanent, right? So the universal truth of non-self is teaching you that this body nor this mind is who you are, and it's teaching you to let go and not cling to it and crave it and hold on to it, wanting it to be permanent. Okay, so this is a little bit of the learning on the universal truth of non-self. Sometimes people don't understand it when I first start talking about it. So if you don't understand it right now, it's okay. That's completely normal. There's multiple times that you'll learn about this. But let me give you some examples so that you can see and independently verify that there is no self. And then understand that over time, you'll learn more and more about it. So think about yourself when you were a child, when you were a teenager, early adulthood, and now. Think about yourself, your character, your personality, how you viewed yourself. Has it been exactly the same through all those phases of your life? Or has the image and your personality and your character, the way you viewed yourself, been constantly changing? What would you say? It's constantly changing, right? There you can see there is no permanent self because your image of yourself, even you, have been constantly changing. Here's another example. Say your arm was cut off. Say it was amputated. You only have one hand and one arm. Are you less of a person now because you have only one hand and one arm? Claire's shaking her head no. What about the rest of you guys? You have one hand and one arm. Are you less of a person? You say no. What do you say, sir? Not sure? Okay. So oftentimes people say, no, I'm not less of a person, right? There you can see that intellectually you understand that this body isn't you. Because if this body was you, when I ask you that question, is your arm cut off and you only have one hand and one arm, or are you less of a person? You say, yes, I'm less of a person because the body is me and there's less of a person, so therefore I'm less of a person. But oftentimes people say, no, I'm not less of a person. So there you can see intellectually understand that this body isn't you, but with the personal existence view, the mind is confused. It has misunderstanding. It has confusion. It has this misperception that when somebody says something about this body in a negative way, you get angry or you get frustrated or you get agitated because the mind's clinging and holding on to this body, thinking that this is who you are. This is the confusion of personal existence view, where the mind's confused. It has the intellectual understanding that this body isn't you, but the mind in a situation where you're hearing negative things, you get angry or frustrated because of that confusion and that pollution. And now here's a third way that you can do this. Sometimes I ask students, point to yourself. Where are you? Okay. I'm sorry, what's your name again? Gary. So Gary's pointing here, and a lot of people, they will point here, right? Some people will point here. So what you've got to do is you've got to look at, what are you pointing to when you point here? What you're pointing to is a shirt. So you ask yourself, is that who you are? If you took off the shirt and you held it up in the air and you pointed to it, you said, is that you? Is that who you are? Claire's saying no. Right? So some of you guys, you're saying, no, that shirt's not you, right? So let's throw away the shirt. That shirt's not you. Okay, well, where are you? And someone might point. Okay, now you're pointing to skin. So if we take off the skin and we held it up and we said, is that you? Is that who you are? That skin that you've got? Is that who you are? Jack saying no. You're saying no. Jesse saying no. Yeah, that's not you. That skin's not you. Okay, so we got rid of that. So now, where are you? Someone might point again. Okay, we've got ribs, we've got muscle tissue, we've got organs and fluid. None of those bits and pieces are you. But this confusion that the mind has in the unenlightened state, it thinks that these things are you. So none of these bits and pieces are you, and the combination of all these things aren't you either. But with the mind's confusion of personal existence view, it will get shaken up when it's experiencing either agreeable or disagreeable contact related to the body, the self-image, or the self-identity, the mind. Okay, so I'm going to pause here and see what questions you guys have on the three universal truths before we move on. And get a mic, Gary, before we move on and have more discussion here. So let me know either online or here at the temple. If you guys have questions, just let me know.
Okay, so none of those individual things are you, not the shirt, not the skin, not the liver, not the ears, not anything, but altogether it is you.
That's what the unenlightened mind's thinking. It thinks that all these things are you. And this is the problem. That now when somebody says something agreeable or disagreeable to you about this body, your mind will get shaken up by it. But in order to get liberated, where you're free from these strong feelings, you're going to need to get to the point where you realize non-self, where you realize that this body isn't you and this mind is not you, so that then if somebody says something agreeable to you and says, wow, Gary, you're so handsome. That shirt really brings out the color of your eyes and your hair. You look so nice. Yeah, see, look, they can see the arrogance arises, right? That's the problem, right? But now if somebody says something negative and degrading, which I won't do, but if somebody did, see, you don't like that, right? No, don't say that, right? that's where the mind's going to struggle when you hear those things. So if you can get liberated from this personal existence view, you can free the mind of this pollution. Now, if someone says something agreeable, okay, maybe you say, thank you, you're so kind, I appreciate your kind words, but your mind isn't affected by it. Your mind doesn't go to that conceit or that boastfulness or that pleasant feeling. But then also when somebody says something negative and degrading, because that's going to happen because of impermanence, not everyone's going to talk to you in a loving and kind way. So now when you hear that degrading and negative thing, that doesn't bother you either, right? So you're going to see this through life, that people are going to be commenting about this body or certain things that your mind might be holding on to as a self-identity. And you would like to get to the point where you're unaffected by what people are saying about this body or this mind. And it takes time to gradually train the mind to do this. We can't talk about it in 5 minutes and then you instantly realize non-self. It takes time to gradually let go, because all through our life, we've been accumulating this self, like the name Gary, that was probably given to you at birth. And now that's a label that we all have. And we kind of carry that around and we start having a certain personality and character. And we have other things that happen throughout our life, like whatever country we're born in, we're kind of ingrained in us to adopt that nationality as our identity. We have national anthems, we have flags, we have all these different things to adopt this identity, because people in our country want us to identify that way, because then we'll invest in the country, we'll work hard to improve it and all these other things. So from birth, the mind has been accumulating personal existence view, and we need to be able to see the truth and the true reality that none of this is you. So while I understand this body was born in a place that is currently referred to as the United States of America, I know in the mind that I am not American, right? So I know that the body was born there, but I don't identify with I am American. Or for example, I know that I'm performing the role of a Buddhist teacher, but my mind doesn't identify with I am a Buddhist teacher. Because now when somebody says, all Buddhist teachers are loving and kind and wonderful, they spend their time to help people. Okay, thank you so much, but that's not me. That's not who I am. That doesn't define who I am, because someday I won't be a Buddhist teacher anymore. Even though I'm going to do it to the end of this life, someday I won't be a Buddhist teacher anymore. But also if somebody says something negative and degrading and disparaging about Buddhist teachers, that doesn't affect my mind either, because I don't identify that way. So this is some work that the mind has to do to understand this and then ultimately let it go and shed it. But otherwise, the mind's going to keep grasping and looking for things. Sometimes people say, well, if I'm not the body and I'm not the mind, then what am I? The mind's looking for something to grab onto and say, this is who I am. And you got to get to the point where you're willing to let that go and no longer identify with the self-image or the self-identity as who you are as a person. And it just takes time to do that. Claire, you have a question?
I went on an organized trip a couple of months ago, and the leader, the first opportunity we had to converse, he said, I used to live in the town where you're from. And I moved away after someone said to me that you lose 3 points off your IQ every year that you live in that town. And I don't think that's true. I didn't take it on personally. I don't think. Maybe I did a little. But more, I felt that it seemed like he was attempting to be cruel for absolutely no reason. And I wondered if you could just talk through, like the feelings about that, and like, how do you interpret something like that?
What were your feelings?
Bad.
Yeah, you felt painful feelings?
I did.
So this either came from your personal existence view, where you are identifying as a resident of this place. That's part of the identity that the mind can adopt. The mind can grab onto self-identity about any number of things, right? So it could have been from your personal existence view, and or what we call central desire, one of those fetters that we were looking at yesterday, where the mind wants to hear permanently agreeable things. and you didn't get that. You didn't get something that was permanently agreeable. So the self-identity, the mind can grab onto anything. One time I had a student contact me. They've been studying with me for many years, and we had a personal guidance session. And he said, I keep going into these restaurants, and ever since COVID, they keep doing these computer screens, and I buy some, like a coffee. I go in and I order for 15 seconds or 30 seconds. They turn the screen around and they ask for a tip. And the option is either, 18%, 22% or 25%. And he's like, all I did was spend 15 seconds ordering a coffee. Do I really need to give them a tip? He's like, I'm a great tipper, but I have a really hard time when I go into these places and try to order coffee because I can't, I don't tip them, and I feel really conflicted over this. What's going on? His mind was identifying with, I am a great tipper. And now when he chose not to tip, his mind wasn't comfortable with that. He wasn't comfortable with that. So your mind can grab onto any number of things as your self-identity. And even I am a great tipper, or I am a resident of this place, or any of this other stuff. So this is what's happening, is that the mind's craving permanently agreeable contact, which you're going to learn about in the Four Noble Truths, which you've already learned with me before, where the mind is wanting things to be permanently agreeable about any number of different things. The things that you see, hear, smell, taste, that touch the body, and things that go through the mind.
I hear you, and I agree. There's probably some part of me that took that on. Mm-hmm. But my bigger question is about how to be around someone who attempts to say something harsh to a person they don't know.
That's the type of individual you may choose not to be around.
Yeah.
That can be a wise decision. If somebody's very pessimistic and complaining and always, being degrading and disparaging, you might choose not to be around that person, but that doesn't solve your problem. Just not being around that person doesn't solve your problem, because the problem is inside the mind, the pollutions of mind. So when you're in the next relationship and the next person says something degrading or disparaging, you're going to get frustrated there too. So what the Buddha is teaching you how to do is get to the source of the problem, the root in the mind, and uproot it. So now, even though you hear that thing from that person, it doesn't affect your mind in a negative way, but you still might choose to not associate with that person. As a wise decision making, but your mind won't be shaken up because of it. But still, you're going to need to get to the root cause, and that's when you're choosing to walk away from a certain relationship like that. You need to maintain right view, which is what I'm helping you develop here, and realize that any feelings that you have about the situation is coming from within your own mind. Because not everybody in the world is going to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful. That would be permanence, but we understand the universal truth of impermanence. Mm-hmm. Helena, you have a question?
Okay, so how to choose people who we want to associate? So how to wisely choose people who we are interested in with? We need to assess their wholesomeness in a sense. So therefore, we are forming, in a sense, like an image of that person. Mm. So I'm thinking I would actually be interested in projecting a hopefully true image of being wholesome, so that other wholesome people want to associate with me. Mm-hmm. And how does that, how is it connected to the non-self?
So you're not interested in judging the person. So this is beyond what we're talking about here. It's okay though. Let me address this, but then we'll get back to the Four Noble Truths for the people that haven't learned. You're not interested in judging the person. You would like to see the decisions that they make as separate from the person. So this person, we can disagree with their decisions, that they were talking in a cruel way, right? We can disagree with that decision, and we know that we wouldn't make those same decisions, but we can still love the person and have loving kindness and compassion for them, which is a genuine interest in seeing them be well and concern for their misfortune. And this is where we can see that somebody's unwise decisions are going to lead to unwholesome results for that person. And therefore, if I choose to be friends with this person, their decisions are now going to impact me because of my choice to be their friend. So we can choose, like, say somebody is a thief or stealing, or they use substances like drugs and things like this. We can see that our decisions to have this person as our life partner, and now when they're addicted to substances, they're going to end up having a lot of medical bills. They're going to have certain expenses. They're going to have lawyer fees. They're going to go to court, go to jail. I'm not going to be able to rely on this person to be trustworthy and loyal and help me with the things that we need to pay for our life. So it would be unwise to make the decision to have this person as your life partner, for example. But you're not judging the person or looking down on them. You're just understanding that their decisions are unwise, and it would be unwise for me to associate with someone who's making such unwise decisions. But I still love this person. I still have a genuine interest in seeing them be well, and I have concern for their misfortune. But in part of that loving kindness and compassion could be, I'm choosing not to be their friend. And more, this person can realize people aren't interested in associating with them. And then potentially that could lead to them choosing to get help and choosing to get away from their substances. So it's a matter of looking at the decisions and deciding whether this person's decisions are going to impact me in a negative way. And if so, it would be unwise to associate with that individual, but still maintain your love and kindness for the person. And any painful feelings that you might be having, it's important to realize it's coming from your own mind. Even though you might choose to walk away from the relationship, your mind needs to let go of what we're going to talk about next, which is the craving, desire, attachment.
Okay, thank you. And, I was actually thinking about the personal existence view. So let's say, for example, that there are gossips about a certain person, and they don't have personal existence view. They don't correct that. They don't care about the image. Yeah. And because of that, I think that they're not acting in a wholesome way, and I choose to not associate with them, whereas maybe they actually are wholesome. So maybe if they cultivated personal image, it would be.
If somebody was gossiping about this being, right, who you are, this is based in their cravings, desires, attachments. They're wanting to put themselves up and push somebody else down. They're not interested in seeing you be successful because they're gossiping about this being. If you don't have personal existence view, this gossip and slander won't affect your mind at all. You can ignore that. You don't have to go out and try to correct that and fix that. But wisely, you would choose to no longer associate with this individual, because it would be unwise for you to associate with people who aren't interested in your success. Because if this person is trying to knock you down and push you down, it would be very unwise to be close to that individual. It's best to move on with your life and do other things with other people who are truly interested in seeing you be well. Because this person's cravings and anger and their unknowing of true reality, that ignorance that you know about, that's going to burden them and cause difficulties in their life. And if you choose to associate with them, it's going to affect you too. So while you don't have personal existence view, if you train your mind to eliminate it, where you won't feel like you need to go out and protect your reputation, but still wisely as a middle way, you're choosing to not associate with an individual who is gossiping and slandering about you. It would be very unwise to do that. Okay, so we're going to go deeper into this so you guys can get more. We got a couple questions here that were beyond what we are talking about, but that's okay. So now that you understand and starting to understand the three universal truths of impermanence, discontentedness, and non-self, let me explain one more building block for you before we talk about the Four Noble Truths. This is called craving, desire, attachment. This is the wants, the expectation, the holding, grasping, clinging, the mind's longing, yearning, wanting things to be a certain way. It has this unquenchable thirst where the mind's pulling in the direction of the objects of its affection. It's wanting things. It's expecting things. It's longing, yearning. It's thinking that the next new shiny object waiting around the corner is going to provide some kind of lasting satisfaction. So it chases and chases and chases and chases. The mind might feel like it wants a new boyfriend or girlfriend, and that's going to solve all all my problems. Let me get a boyfriend or girlfriend. And then you chase that for a while. And then you get that, you get happy, that happiness arises, changes, and it fades away. Or you might chase money. Or if you've ever been in the mall and you saw like a brand new pair of shoes and you're like, oh yeah, brand new pair of shoes. Oh yeah, that's what I need. Oh, that's going to be so great. And now you chase that for a little bit. Or you might saw a brand new phone or a computer. The mind was pulling towards this thing, thinking that this was going to provide lasting satisfaction. Do you know what I'm talking about? Have you experienced this? Do you know what I'm talking about? Yeah? Okay, you guys know what I'm talking about? Okay, so you experienced this, right? This is the longing, the yearning, the chasing after the objects of your affection. It's almost like an unquenchable thirst that the mind just wants more and more and more and more and more. Okay, so this is called craving, desire, attachment. Also, expectations, wants, holding, grasping, and clinging. So now we'll talk about the Four Noble Truths. In these 4 statements, you're going to be able to independently verify what's causing your feelings. Okay, so here, the first noble truth is explaining to you the problem in the unenlightened mind. The problem is everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness. So those conditioned feelings are the problem. The pleasant feelings, painful feelings, neither painful nor pleasant. And remember, we're talking about conditioned pleasant feelings based on some condition. By the time you get to enlightenment, your mind is beyond that. You're experiencing unconditional happiness where your mind is just always joyful. But in the unenlightened state, you're going to experience conditioned feelings that when this condition is met and this condition is met and this condition is met, then you'll be happy. But then when those conditions are met, your mind's going to be sad or frustrated or agitated or annoyed or some other discontent feeling. So everyone that is unenlightened will experience discontentedness, those conditioned feelings. That's the problem, the first noble truth. The second noble truth is explaining the cause of this problem. Discontentedness is caused by our own cravings, desires, attachments, because the mind wants everything to be permanent when everything in the world is impermanent. Okay, I'll explain that a few times and give you some examples. The discontentedness, the pleasant feelings, painful feelings, and neither painful nor pleasant, is caused by the craving, desire, attachment, the wants, the expectation, the longing, the yearning. The mind wants everything to be permanent, but yet you live in this impermanent world and everything around you is impermanent. Okay? So for example, say you've been in that relationship with the boyfriend or girlfriend. When you guys first got together, everything's so wonderful, so pleasurable. Oh, it couldn't be better. You guys are having great conversations together. You're going to the park. You're going to the movies. You're going out to eat. You might be having intimate contact with each other. All these pleasurable things. Somebody's checking in on you, showing you affection, seeing how you're doing. Oh, so much pleasure. Based on the condition of you've got somebody new in your life who's showing you this affection. But now over time, your expectations grow of things that you want from this other person, and their expectations grow. And you guys can't fulfill each other's expectations permanently. And now you get angry, you get frustrated, you get annoyed, and you guys break up. And now you might feel lonely or bored or angry or frustrated or some other discontent feeling. This is because the mind's craving for this relationship to be permanent. Oftentimes people think it's love that's causing that sadness or that loneliness or that feeling of boredom when they're gone. But it's not. It's the mind holding on and wanting this person to be permanent. The love is the genuine interest in seeing this being be well. That doesn't cause anger and sadness and frustration. The craving, desire, attachment is what's causing the discontent feelings, not the love. So when you're in a relationship, if you're craving for this to be permanent and you're holding on to it and you're clinging to it, when it's over, you experience this impermanence and the mind doesn't understand that. Another way to say that the mind craves permanence is to say that it does not like impermanence. The unenlightened mind doesn't like change. You start experiencing a bunch of change in your life, your mind doesn't like it because it's craving permanence. It's wanting things to be a certain way permanently. Here's another example. Say you get a brand new car. This is like the car you've always dreamed of. You've saved up money for it all these years, and you finally go down to the car dealer and you purchase it. And you drive off the parking lot and you're feeling so proud. All your friends are going to see you driving this brand new car, show you how successful you are. You park it in front of the store. Walking into the store, you have all these pleasant feelings about this great car that you just purchased, but then you come outside and you see a scratch on your car. Oh my goodness. Oh, your heart's broken. You feel so frustrated, so angry. It's not the scratch that's causing that. And it's not the person who scratched your car. They're not the one who's causing you to be frustrated and angry. What's causing you to be frustrated is inside your mind, you have this craving for this car to look permanently beautiful. And this car is not permanent. The paint's going to fade. The tires are going to need to be changed. The upholstery inside is going to maybe get ripped or torn, or it's going to fade in color. As long as your mind is craving permanence, when you experience impermanence, your mind isn't going to like that. Now, we're not talking about what's wise or unwise, because obviously we walk around the world aspiring to never scratch somebody's car, right? But that's not the world we live in, where we never get our car scratched. It'd be wonderful if nobody ever scratched our car, but that's not the world we live in. We live in an impermanent world, but the mind is craving permanence and wanting things to be permanent. So as long as your mind's going around the world craving permanence, but you live in an impermanent world, you're going to constantly be angry, annoyed, frustrated, agitated, feeling guilt or shame or stress or anxiety or these other discontent feelings. So you need to be able to now independently verify this, because I taught you, don't believe me, right? So take a recent situation where you've been angry or frustrated or irritated or annoyed, and look at that situation with these fresh eyes. Because at that time, you might have been looking for someone to blame. Usually when you're angry and you're frustrated, you're looking around for someone to blame. That's usually what the unenlightened mind does. Okay? But now look at this situation with these fresh eyes. There was something you wanted in that situation. And if you would have got it, you would have been happy. But the fact that you didn't get it, you got angry or frustrated or sad or some other discontent feeling. And if you're having trouble figuring that out and being able to see the truth that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings, let me know and I will help you. Because students have shared with me, they're like, David, hold on a second. I went to work the other day. My house looked beautiful. I went out to work and I came home, 5 o'clock, 6 o'clock. My wife had this craft project all over the house and I got frustrated. How could my mind have caused my frustration? I wasn't even there. I just walked in and boom, I got frustrated right away. I was like, yeah, because your mind's craving permanence. You were expecting the house to look a certain way when you came back. And your house can't look that way permanently, right? Your house isn't going to look any particular way permanently. It's not possible. So as long as your mind's craving permanence, when you come back home and you see this impermanence with your wife's craft project all over the place, you got frustrated, you got annoyed. But that craft project isn't permanent. Just like the house looking the way you wanted it to look isn't permanent, this craft project all over the house, that's not permanent either. Right? So the mind is going to constantly crave permanence, and it's going to be looking for someone else to blame. With the lack of wisdom of the second noble truth, when you experience painful feelings, you will falsely attribute that to something external. And what you've been doing is you've been pushing people away out of your life, thinking that that's going to solve the problem. Or you've been pushing a situation out of your life. The mind thinks that's going to solve the problem because you feel those painful feelings. You falsely attribute it to this person or this situation, and you might push that person away out of your life. This is called aversion. But you didn't solve the problem because that person isn't the cause of the problem. If that person was the cause of the problem, when you push them away, you wouldn't be angry anymore. You'd be completely peaceful. But you keep getting annoyed and frustrated and agitated over and over, even though you push this person away. The second thing you'll do when you lack wisdom of the second noble truth is you'll be bitter and harsh and hostile to people through your intentions, your speech, and your actions. It's almost like an animal growling and roaring at this other person, trying to convince them to do things your way. Or the third thing you might do is put your expectations on people and you try to control them and get them to do things your way. I'm sure you've been in arguments with people where you've been yelling and hollering and adamantly trying to convince them that what they are doing is wrong and they need to stop doing what they're doing because they are making you angry. But this is the mind's lack of wisdom, that the mind just doesn't understand what it doesn't understand. The mind doesn't realize that your mind is causing your own discontent feelings, and it's caused by craving, desire, attachment. And you can look at this and independently verify it for yourself. And then as you see that clearly more and more, you can understand the third noble truth. The third noble truth is explaining that the elimination of discontentedness is possible by eliminating craving, desire, attachment. When you can see that the cause of the problem is craving, desire, attachment, then to eliminate it, you just need to eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments. That's the cause. So if you eliminate the cause, you won't experience the effect, which is the discontentedness, right? And the way that you eliminate your cravings, desires, attachments is the fourth noble truth. The path to eliminating discontentedness is the Eightfold Path. That's the complete, perfect plan that the Buddha developed in order to completely eliminate discontentedness. He did it for himself. He experienced the peace and the joy. He knew that it worked. And if it worked for him, it'll work for you too. And that's why it's been around for 2,500 years. But people haven't understood it. People aren't practicing it closely. So the more you learn it and you practice it, you'll be able to get to the point where you can completely eliminate discontentedness when you understand it and you practice it closely. So you can independently verify this, like the third noble truth. The elimination of discontentedness is possible when you eliminate craving, desire, attachment. Once again, think back to that boyfriend or girlfriend. When you guys first separated, you might have been angry, or you felt lonely, or you felt bored, or you felt frustrated. But at some point, you were like, you know what? If he wants to be with somebody else, so be it. Go. Or if she wants to be with someone else, so be it. Go. Or you want to move to another country or another town, okay, so be it. You let them go. And when your mind let them go, that's where you regained your peacefulness, because your mind let go. But the mind doesn't know how to let go. And that's what the training is going to help you to understand, how to train your mind to let go. Okay, so this is the Four Noble Truths. Do you guys have any questions on this? Mm-hmm.
Okay. So, okay. I understand that we get attached and there's craving and we want things to be a certain way. I get that. I get that causes pain. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, we live in this world, this reality, and if somebody promises something to somebody, I promise to bring you a book and you're expecting it, or a microphone, and I don't. I've disappointed you, right? I mean, yet you expected me to bring it. I told you I would, but I didn't do it. So, I mean, how do you navigate that?
You understand impermanence and you never form an expectation. So if you told me, David, I'm going to bring you a new microphone tomorrow, I'd be like, oh, thank you so much, Gary. I appreciate your kindness.
What wouldn't you immediately?
But my mind would not expect it whatsoever, because I already know that it may or may not happen.
Oh, okay.
Because when you go out into the world, say your friend got sick and you had to take them to the hospital, so you didn't have time to go get the microphone. So tomorrow when you come to class, you don't have the microphone. And that's understandable because of impermanence. But if my mind craves and longs and yearns and expects this microphone to come to class, yeah, I'll be disappointed and frustrated. But you train your mind to not ever do that. Right now, you don't have the ability to do that because your mind hasn't been trained. But once you train your mind, you get to the point where somebody tells you something, already in your mind, this may or may not happen. Don't cling to it, because if you cling to it, you're going to feel painful feelings. And you're not interested in those painful feelings. It's kind of like stabbing yourself with a knife, and you won't do that, right? So as soon as somebody tells you something, oh, okay, great, thank you so much, I appreciate your kindness. And then that may or may not even happen.
One other quick one. You talk about the enlightened state and the unenlightened state. Mm-hmm. Is there states in between these two states?
No, your mind's either enlightened or unenlightened.
So there's no 10% enlightened or 20% enlightened?
That's the stages of enlightenment, right? What we talked about yesterday, the first, second, third, and fourth stage of enlightenment. As you're getting closer and closer to enlightenment, there's going to be the gradual diminishing of discontentedness and the gradual increase of the qualities of enlightenment. It's not like you flip a switch and you're just enlightened or you're not. But as long as you're not in the fourth stage of enlightenment, the mind is unenlightened at that point.
Okay.
So once you get into the fourth stage, that's where the mind is enlightened. But you're going to see increased qualities of enlightenment starting to shine through more and more as you move through the four stages of enlightenment. Even in the jhanas, you'll see that.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yes, sir.
Yeah. Say in the example, somebody insults you, as you said earlier, and you feel bad about it. But then this person insults everybody else. Mm-hmm. But maybe you're enlightened. You say, well, it doesn't affect me, but you can see how it affects everybody else. Mm-hmm. So it's not my perception or how I deal with the problem it's not me. To get rid of the problem, this person would need to change his, not insult people.
That doesn't solve the problem. Because the very next person that insults you, you've got the problem again, because the problem is inside your own mind. Mm-hmm. The problem's not external. Now, it is unwise for that person to be doing what they're doing, and that's affecting that person. That nobody wants to be that person's friend, and they're very lonely, and they're very frustrated, and they're having a very miserable life, going around talking to people that way. But getting that person to change doesn't actually fix your problem, because your problem is inside your own mind. If you can get rid of your cravings and desires, getting rid of that personal existence view, wanting people to talk to you in a certain way, now when this person says something to you, your mind's unaffected by it. But you still might choose to not associate with that person, but you don't have any painful feelings as part of it. You might just smile and just move on. So what the unenlightened mind does is, based on its pollutions, it will react in that situation with bitterness and hostility. Who are you to talk to me like that? Blah, 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 blah. You're wrong. Blah, blah, blah. Right? And now you're being unskillful, right? And now you're causing problems in the world. But an enlightened mind can hear that, okay. And then you might just start walking away. Maintain your contentedness. You don't get frustrated and agitated or annoyed. Or there's any number of ways that you might handle that. There's not just one way that an enlightened being would handle that situation, but as an enlightened being, fixing this person doesn't solve your problem, because you've already solved your problem as an enlightened being. You're not getting angry and frustrated. And to give that person unsolicited advice would be unwise, because that would be your own ego trying to step in there and change this person. So you got to focus on the real problem, which is inside your own mind, and that's where you can get to liberation. And this is why so many people in the world continue to be frustrated, because they're seeking to change the outside world instead of the inner world. All the work on the path to enlightenment is on the inner world within your own mind, and that will change everything.
But wouldn't you see the effect on other people if he does that to everybody, and you're concerned for other people as well? Yeah, I might accept it, but the effect he's having on other people who are enlightened, also, isn't that not a cause of your concern or personal concern?
I always have concern for anybody's misfortune whenever I see misfortune in the world, but I don't worry about it. Concern and worry are two different things, because I know that these other people that this person is interacting with, it's their choice to interact with this person. That's not my choice. My choice is, you know what? I'll choose not to interact with that person. I mean, I would now, because it doesn't affect me. And, I've had students that come here sometimes and they're very disgruntled or angry. I still love that person. I would still help that person regardless. But if I was in a private relationship with this person, I wouldn't be interested in associating with someone who's constantly bitter and harsh and hostile to others. But if other people choose to associate with that person and they're experiencing painful feelings, that's their choice. It's not up to me to fix that person for other people. It's up to other people to have the wisdom that it's unwise to associate with someone like that. And then they have to make the choices that's best for their life. My role isn't to go out and fix the world. My role is anybody who chooses to come here, I will teach them how to fix their mind. And then you're making that choice. But somebody who's out there that's not making that choice, I can't help that person because they're not choosing to be here to learn.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Okay, we mentioned the insult things, and I think it happens a lot in China when country or the people there, they will insult you, and I think what we thought is we take it or we fight back, but not just only frustrated. We will frustrated, but we were thinking about fight back or not. And my question is that we say that there is an energy circle. It's like energy conservation. Yeah. So I mean, if the people insult us but we don't fight back, or we just take it a piece, then where is the bad energy go? If they give it to me, maybe I will pass that to my friend, or I will pass that to my. If I do not pass to anyone, so where does the bad energy go?
Okay. If you have a gift and you try to offer me that gift and I don't accept the gift, whose gift is it? It's your gift, right? So if you be angry and hostile with me and I don't absorb it, where does the anger stay?
So it's like a shield.
Yeah.
Okay.
Your mind's fully protected.
But sometimes we have to get involved with their relationship. So, and maybe we need to cooperate. And sometimes you will have the common sympathy or common understanding. So that's
You don't have to do anything in life except die. That's the only thing you have to do. Everything else is optional. So any kind of relationship, no matter where it is in your life, if you're not interested in being in that relationship, you can choose to not be in that relationship. It's always a choice. Everything you experience in life is a choice. Yep. So you can just choose for yourself. But just remember, in those situations where someone's being bitter and harsh and hostile to you, choosing to not associate with that person doesn't solve your problem. It does help in terms of you're not interacting with someone who's being bitter, harsh, and hostile. But if you're experiencing painful feelings, you got to address the craving, desire, attachment in your mind that's causing it.
He mentioned that there are a lot of people, they are pursued too much, they pursue the permanent things, but there are also some people, they don't pursue anything. They think they are not deserve good things. They don't deserve a comfortable. They just make their life in a mess. They just destroy themselves. So what should we say to these people?
You don't have to say anything to anybody because each individual person is on their own journey and they're responsible for their own wellness. You're not responsible for other people. So the Buddha is not giving you like stock answers that says, okay, if this happens, do that. And if this happens, do that. That would be like a permanent answer for every single situation. Instead, he's teaching you how to get rid of the pollutions out of your mind so that in each situation, you can figure out with your higher consciousness and your wisdom of what would be wise in that situation. So there's some situations where somebody might be experiencing, somebody might come to me with something like that, and I might just smile and just say, oh, okay, I understand. There might be another situation where I might say, is there something I can do to help you? Is there something you would like my help with? Or I might say, would you like some advice on that situation? So each time you interact in the world, the variables are going to be different, and you're going to handle the situation differently in different situations. So there's not going to be like just one standard way that you always handle every single situation. But your first responsibility is to this being who you are, that you need to do the work within your own mind and train your own mind. And then as you become more and more wise and more peaceful, if other people around you are struggling and you would like to offer your help and your assistance, you can do that. But you need to do it in a way that they're soliciting your help. Whereas if somebody's struggling and you just stepped into their life and started to try to offer them a bunch of advice, this is your ego that's trying to step into their life and tell them what they should or shouldn't do. But if somebody's asking you for advice and saying, hey, I'm really struggling with this, what would you recommend? Now they're soliciting your advice and you can share your guidance with them. But even in a situation where maybe they're struggling and they don't even realize they're struggling and you know that they could do it a much better way, you would still be able to help them, but you need to ask and make sure they're open to your advice, where you can say, hey, Mom, I see you're really struggling with that. Would you like my thoughts or some advice on how to do that better? And she might say yes, and she might say no. If you have a craving When she says no, you'll be hurt by that. But you need to be able to understand by her saying no, that doesn't mean she doesn't love you or she doesn't care about you or she doesn't value your opinion. It's just in that situation, she's saying no. But then also if she says, yes, I am interested in your opinion, when you start sharing that with her, ultimately she may or may not do what it is you recommend, right?
Okay. So if the people, they think they deserve good things, they come to the temple. Or if we people, we have that part in our lives, in our inside. So our solution is to get wisdom.
That's the ultimate goal of your life, is to cultivate wisdom. If you're cultivating wisdom, you can never fail. So even when you're working towards a goal, if you fall short of your goal, maybe you got 80% or 90% of your goal. If you were cultivating wisdom during that period of time, which you were, you've succeeded. Where oftentimes people look at the prize, the ultimate completion of the goal, that's their reward. They want those pleasant feelings by getting to the goal. But if you change your perspective about life and you realize that your ultimate goal is to cultivate wisdom, no matter what you do in life, you're always succeeding because you're always cultivating wisdom. Even if you have a big so-called failure or lack of success, you still cultivated wisdom in that situation. So the next time you're going to be able to do that thing that much better. So every time, no matter what's happening in your life, just cultivate wisdom about each situation. So every time that I might have had a girlfriend and that relationship ended, or like I had a wife, my first wife, and that relationship ended, I needed to look at it and figure out and gain wisdom about how can I do this better next time. And then ultimately, by the time I met my current wife, now we've been together for 17 years and we'll be together for the rest of our life. So each individual situation, I was cultivating wisdom of how to do this better, how to have this relationship better. Or like more simple one is like my son, putting him at a school. When we first came to Chiang Mai, I had to select a school for him to go to. Where growing up in America, I never had to select a school because it was wherever you live, that's where you go to school. I did select my university, but elementary school, middle school, high school, I didn't have to select that. It was based on where you lived. So when we put him in the first school, he was there for 5 years. We thought it was a great school, but ultimately we saw all these problems. So we cultivated wisdom, and then we selected a second school. And then he went to that school for 2.5 years. And then we started seeing problems in that school. But then we selected a third school, the school that he's at now. And we think that this is going to be the school all the way until he graduates high school. Because each one of those situations, we were cultivating wisdom about how to select a school and what is it in a school that we're actually looking for. So someone might say, oh, that was a failure because you chose a school and he didn't go there all the way. No, we didn't fail. Each individual situation, we were learning and gaining wisdom. And now we were able to find a really good school for him that we all feel good about. So each time, each thing you do in life, just keep cultivating wisdom and you'll never, ever fail. Because you're going to use that wisdom to help you continue to succeed in life.
How do the Buddhists usually think about some other one God religion? And can a person go to the church or some other kind of temples with this Buddhism temple together? And can that be, get the balance or peace in one person?
Okay, so we're a little bit off topic, but I'll answer this for you, okay? So one of the big misunderstandings in the teachings of the Buddha is that people think that the Buddha didn't teach about God, but he actually did. He taught about God, and he talks about God multiple places in his teachings. But he doesn't make God as a central role in his teachings because it's not God that determines whether you get to enlightenment or not. So he put you at the central role of his teachings because it's you that needs to train your mind and get to enlightenment. But he does talk about God because God is part of this world and part of the cycle of rebirth. But there's no worshiping of God. There's no prayer to God. There's none of that because it's not God that determines what you experience in life. It's you and your decisions that determine this. So if you learn and practice the teachings of the Buddha, you can get to enlightenment potentially in this life. You will see the condition of your mind gradually improving. But if you decide to go to a church or a synagogue or a mosque or things like that, that's your choices. You know, there's no rules or commandments. There's no one person at the top of Buddhism telling everybody else what they should or shouldn't do. It's your life, it's your decisions, and it's your results. So you can decide for yourself what you might choose to do at any one given time in life. But you'll do that more wisely when you have wisdom of these teachings and you're training your mind. So whether you choose to go to a church or somewhere else, it's your choice. That's what you would choose to do. But if you're training your mind to get to enlightenment more and more, you'll be able to make wise decisions about any aspect of your life, not just whether you should go to church or a mosque or a synagogue or something like that, but the types of individuals to have in your life, employees to hire, companies that you would like to work for, places to live. You'll make wiser decisions about all these things in your life. Okay, go ahead.
And Buddha said, or how do you say? We should do something good to collect the good fortune for us so that we can get a return, like good fortune. So it's like you do good things, like you don't kill animals, you don't eat meat, or you just free the animals and you help the people and you collect the good fortune so that you are living a peace or you living a good return. That's kind of popular ideas in Chinese culture.
Yeah, he didn't teach it exactly the way you're explaining it, because this is like still got expectation in there. Like, I'm going to do this good thing because I want this good thing in return. The Buddha didn't teach it that way because that's still got expectation in there. Instead, he's teaching you wise decision making. And it's important that you do that without any expectation of anything in return, that you just know that as a wise human being, it's wise to go out into the world, make wise decisions, don't cause harm to other beings, because if you cause harm to others, then harm is going to come back to you. So the idea of doing something good in order to produce good fortune, and you want something good to come back to you, that's still got craving, desire, attachment, and expectations in it. And the Buddhism that's in China is a bit away from what the Buddha actually taught. So that's why you've been exposed to those kinds of things. So the Buddha has many different teachings about this. Tomorrow I'm going to teach this. I'd be pleased to sit down with you at lunch if you'd like and talk more, but we have a topic here that I'd like to talk about further. But if you'd like to eat at lunch, I'll share this with you because I know you're not going to be here tomorrow. And I can talk more about those kinds of things because tomorrow we're going to talk about that. Mm-hmm. All right, so no more questions on the Four Noble Truths? Let's see if we have anything online. Okay, we have something here. Let's see. Okay, so Sean is asking a question. How can I better handle situations in which I have to deal with people such as coworkers that act and speak unwisely and negatively without insulting or being rude or being perceived as such? So we talked a little bit about that. Maybe your question came in when we before we were talking earlier, that you're going to need to choose about the individuals that you associate with. But as you learn and practice this entire Eightfold Path, which we haven't gotten to yet, that's what's going to give you the background to know how to interact with all beings. So there's more here for you to learn. This is just the first step. So how to exist in ego world without mind as an individual. So you don't need to have an ego in order to exist in the world, because the ego is the arrogance and the pride and the boastfulness and looking down on people or looking up to people with such awe and admiration. You can just think of yourself as being equal. You need to be able to study the full teachings of the Buddha to understand how to dissolve the ego. Right now, you maybe can't fathom living in a world without ego, but if you get our first book, which is Developing a Life Practice, The Path That Leads to Enlightenment, this is on our website at buddhadailywisdom.com, and you can download it for free. Volume 1, Chapter 16 teaches you how to eliminate the ego and dissolve the ego, because that's important in order to be able to get to enlightenment. So there's more here for me to discuss with you guys. You're only seeing one step of the Eightfold Path. So let's go deeper into it so that you can understand more. So here, there's going to be more steps that we're talking about. So far, I've only talked about right view. Okay. We're going to continue on here and then take a break here in a little bit as well. But what right view is the Four Noble Truths. You guys saw that in the words of the Buddha, where he explains the problem, the cause of the problem, the elimination of the problem, and the path forward, how to completely eliminate the problem. What wrong view would be is to blame other people for your discontentedness. If you're blaming other people for your anger and your sadness and frustration or any other discontent feelings, this is wrong view. And you can't get to enlightenment with wrong view, because you'll go out into the world and you'll try to teach other people to do things your way. You can't do that. You're not going to teach 8 billion people how to do things your way. You live in an impermanent world, and it's not possible for everyone to do things your way. So as long as you have cravings and expectations and wanting other people to do things your way, you'll never get to peacefulness and you'll never get to joy. So you're going to need to establish right view, where you understand that the problem is inside your own mind and there's a solution for that problem. The solution is the Eightfold Path. Learning and practicing this, that's what's going to lead to the complete elimination of discontentedness. So right view is to maintain the view that craving, desire, attachment is the cause of your discontentedness. Your mind is causing it itself. As long as you're looking external for the problem, you're looking in the wrong place and you'll never solve it. But when you look internally and you can see and independently verify that your mind is causing your own discontentedness, then you apply the tools and techniques that the Buddha teaches you, you'll actually be able to solve the problem. So the right view is establishing the wisdom that your mind is causing your own discontentedness. And now, building on that foundation, you're going to now learn how to actually completely eradicate the discontentedness from the mind and have wonderful relationships with all the people around you. So let's go into right intention. This is the second step. Some people translate this as right thinking or right thought. So right intention is 3 aspects. And here you can see the words of the Buddha. In what, monks, is right intention? The intention of renunciation, the intention of non-ill will, the intention of harmlessness. This, monks, is called right intention. Okay, so here you've got 3 aspects that the Buddha is teaching you, is the intention of renunciation, non-ill will, and harmlessness. This is thinking or thoughts. This is how you need to establish in your mind the intention of renunciation. What this means is that you have the intention to let go and give up your false beliefs, your opinions, and your views, because your mind being in the unenlightened state, there are certain false beliefs and certain opinions and views that you have about the world that are untrue. And you're going to need to be willing to let those go. In other words, you need to have an open mind. You're going to need to be willing to let go of the unwholesomeness. There are certain unwholesome things that you're currently doing right now that you're going to need to be willing to let go of. If you didn't have the intention of letting these things go, and you're just going to hold on to the things that you're currently doing, you'll never get to enlightenment. You need to have the intention to let go. So that's what the intention of renunciation is. One of the very first false beliefs that you need to eliminate is that other people are causing you to be angry. Other people are causing you to be frustrated. But you're not getting rid of your false beliefs by bringing in new beliefs. That's not what you're doing. What I'm teaching you is to cultivate wisdom. Right? You're learning something, you're reflecting on it to independently verify it, and then you're practicing it to be able to see the truth for yourself. So when you bring in this wisdom and you see that, whoa, I've been believing all along that other people are causing me to be angry, but I can see the truth that the mind is causing its own discontent feelings based on craving, desire, attachment. So you get rid of those false beliefs, and now you've got wisdom. By the time you get to enlightenment, you don't have any beliefs. You know the truth about the world. You know the full truth. Because as long as you have beliefs, you don't know what's true or false. You're just walking around the world believing a bunch of things. You don't know whether it's true or false. And this is why your mind can easily be shaken up. But when you know the truth and you have wisdom, you'll walk out into the world understanding the natural laws of existence, and you'll be able to navigate the world peacefully. You won't struggle and have difficulties anymore. But as long as you don't have the intention of renunciation, you'll hold on to the things that you currently think about the world. You'll hold on to your false beliefs, and this is going to hinder you from being able to bring in this new wisdom. So you would like to be able to bring in this new wisdom, realizing that if you still get angry and sad and frustrated and agitated and all these other discontent feelings, it's just because there's certain wisdom that your mind doesn't have. You're not a bad person. You haven't necessarily done anything wrong. It's just that the mind lacks wisdom and hasn't been trained yet. So if you practice the intention of renunciation, you're willing to let go of all these false beliefs, these misperceptions, this unwholesomeness that the mind is actually involved in. Then there's the intention of non-ill will. What ill will is animosity, bitterness, anger, hatred, and all the lesser versions. And you're interested in practicing the opposite of that. Non-ill will is to say to practice the intention of goodwill. What goodwill is loving kindness, a genuine interest in seeing all beings be well. active goodwill towards all beings. You're going to need that and have that intention, because this couples with the next one, which is the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing any harm to other beings. Because as long as you're causing harm to other beings, this harm is going to come back to you. This is the cause and effect. This is the natural law of karma. So that's why, like, if somebody wants to fight and argue, the last thing you're interested in doing is fighting and arguing back, because that, as you put that out, it's just going to come back to you. So you've got to bury this and you've got to extinguish this. So if someone's being bitter and harsh and hostile to you, you don't solve the problem by being bitter and harsh and hostile back. You've just got to train your mind to walk away from that and not respond. There's no way that you're going to eliminate anger with more anger. You can't put more fire on the fire in order to get rid of the fire, right? If you've got fire coming at you, you've got to walk away. It's too hot. I'm not interested in being here. Walk away, right? So anger doesn't get extinguished by more anger. So you need to train your mind to not be bitter and harsh and hostile, that you practice this intention of renunciation where you're willing to let go. You practice the intention of non-ill will or goodwill, loving kindness, and you practice the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested in causing harm to others. And now this is the thinking or the thought that you develop in the mind as an intention. So here, just to summarize this, right view is the Four Noble Truths, which includes accepting responsibility for your own feelings, your intentions, your speech, and your actions, realizing that it's your own mind that's causing these feelings. Now and forever, whenever you're angry or sad or frustrated or experiencing any other discontent feeling, you should look inward and figure out what are the cravings, desires, attachments that you're having that is causing these feelings to arise. Because what the unenlightened mind does with the lack of wisdom is you're going to look externally. You're going to look to blame somebody. You're going to push people away. You're going to be bitter, harsh, and hostile, and you'll put your expectations on people. And this doesn't solve your problem. But if you're practicing right view, not only do you understand intellectually that it's craving, desire, attachment that's causing these feelings, but then you look inward and try to figure out what are your cravings, desires, attachments. And where you have trouble with that, you can reach out to me, and I'm all here to help you. That's what a teacher does, is we support you on your journey, because there's times where you might not be able to see it. But after 2 or 3 or 4 times of having conversations about these things, you'll be able to spot it more and more. What is your mind craving? There's some permanence that you're craving. Okay, so accepting responsibility and accountability for your own feelings. This is what's going to promote right view and help you to now build out all the other rest of the factors of the path to completely transform your mind. Then there's right intention, which is practicing the intention of renunciation, non-ill will or loving kindness, and the intention of harmlessness, where you're disinterested or incapable of causing harm to other beings. And now this rounds out the wisdom section of the Eightfold Path. This is going to now help you to build everything else on top of that, because there's certain moral conduct that you're conducting that is harmful. You're putting out harm to others, and now this harm is going to come back to you. So the Buddha is going to teach you the natural laws of existence around moral conduct. He's not giving you rules or commandments. He's not telling you what you should or shouldn't do. He's going to help you see that, hey, if you're interested in getting to a peaceful life, you're going to need to change the way that you function in the world, because as long as you're putting out harm through your speech and your actions or your livelihood, this harm is going to come back to you. So we're going to study that and the mental discipline after our break, because the mental discipline is what's going to help you to implement the moral conduct. So right now it's basically 10:50. Let's take a 15-minute break. Let's go up until 10 minutes after 11. And when we come back from our break, I will share with you guys the rest of the Eightfold Path, walking you guys through it in this same way to help you learn, reflect, and practice. So I'll see you guys after break at about 10 minutes after 11. Okay? So thank you guys for your questions and the discussion. We'll see you guys in a little bit. Okay? You guys online, you guys are welcome to continue to join us as well. I'm just going to go to a little break here. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and start class back up. If you guys would like to come in, you're more than welcome to learn more. We're going to continue with our journey here on the Eightfold Path so that you guys can understand more of the path. We're going to go in now to right speech, right action, and right livelihood, and then eventually into the mental discipline section as well. So whenever you're learning moral conduct from the teachings of the Buddha, it's important that you understand what he's teaching you is the natural law of karma. Some people refer to it as karma. That's the Sanskrit version of this word, where the Pali version is karma. And the original teachings of the Buddha are in Pali. So people who study the original teachings of the Buddha use this Pali word. If this translated to just one English word, I would just use that word. But it doesn't, so I still need to use this word karma. It means cause and effect, or action and result, the results of your decisions. It's your life, it's your decisions, and it's your results. So there's certain wise decision making that we can have around moral conduct that's going to produce wholesome karma. And then there's unwise decisions that we can make around our moral conduct that's going to produce unwholesome karma. So when you're experiencing difficulties and struggles in your relationships, there's certain unwise decisions that you're making about your moral conduct that is producing these unwholesome results in your relationships. So the more that you understand the moral conduct, you can be practicing in a wise way where you're only practicing wholesome moral conduct, wise moral conduct, and then more and more you'll see wise and wholesome things coming back to you. So I'm going to teach you guys all the moral conduct, but just understand the Buddha's not giving you rules or commandments, or he's not trying to force you to do any particular thing. He's just explaining to you the natural laws. He's helping you see that based on speech and the way that people react, that this is the best way to speak. And he's helping you eliminate craving, desire, attachment. Remember, that's the number one thing, the way the mind holds on and it's longing, yearning. So this Eightfold Path is going to teach you how to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. And you're still learning, reflecting, and practicing. So here under right speech, he says, in what, monks, is right speech? Refraining from lying, refraining from slander, refraining from harsh speech, refraining from frivolous speech. This is called right speech. So he's giving you 4 things that if you practice these, then you will eliminate craving, desire, attachment in regards to your speech. Because when you're lying, you can see that it produces unwholesome results. You've seen that because we've all lied at different times in our life. And if you've done a lot of lying, you saw that your mind was obsessively trying to figure out, what did you say to this person versus that person versus this person? You got to keep it all straight. And how could you ever get to a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life if that's what you're doing? So if you're looking to be trustworthy and dependable and reliable in your relationships, you're going to need to speak the truth. And it's actually easier because you can just look inward and you can just decide to speak the truth. The reason why we lie is because there's a craving. There's something that you want. And if you tell the truth, you're not going to get it. But if you lie, you might get what you want. But you're damaging your relationships. You're damaging your reputation. So you would like to eliminate all lying. So you just speak the truth. And then your mind can be at ease because you're just always speaking the truth. Then there's refraining from slander. This is like gossip. This is damaging other people's reputation. If you go around and you slander and you gossip about people, you're going to find a lot of difficulties, a lot of struggles. This is why, like, investigative reporters, they'll get on the news and they might have investigated somebody and they start slandering or gossiping this person and they end up dead. Right? The Buddha's teachings aren't explaining to you the way the world should be. He's explaining to you the way the world is. And if you go out into the world and you gossip and slander people, they might be interested in fighting you. They might be interested in injuring you. They might be interested in murdering you. At the very least, those people that you're gossiping with, they're going to be gossiping about you. When you turn your back, they're going to be gossiping about you because you've gotten them used to sitting around gossiping and slandering. And now in your relationships, people are going to be gossiping and slandering about you. So if you purge the gossip and slander, you'll see that you'll have a more peaceful life because the gossip and slander is also coming from a craving. Your mind maybe wants to look good to other people. And you might feel like if I push this person down, then I will look better. But this is like putting out someone else's candle in order for your candle to shine brighter. Well, if you're in a dark room, having 2 candles is better than 1. Putting out somebody else's candle doesn't help the room to shine brighter, right? So oftentimes there's a craving in there for you to look great and other people to look bad. And that's where the slander and gossip's coming from. Then there's something called harsh speech. You would like to eliminate this. This is your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. When you have a certain craving and you want things to be done a certain way, if someone doesn't do it your way, you'll be harsh and strong and bitter and hostile with that person, almost trying to fear them into doing things your way. But this isn't going to promote healthy and harmonious relationships in your life. So you're going to need to eliminate your harsh speech and start paying attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. And there's ways for you to speak in wise ways that are going to promote beneficial relationships for you and healthy relationships. Then what frivolous speech is this is like idle chatter. This is like random chit chat where you're just like yada, 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 yada. If you've ever done this or you know someone that has, it's like, oh my goodness, when are they going to stop talking? Oh my goodness. So if you're like that, that's your own craving where you're not really having a conversation with anyone, you're broadcasting. Right? And you're not interested in broadcasting, right? You would like to have an interactive conversation. So you're going to need to learn not to have frivolous speech and just ramble on and on and on about unpurposeful and beneficial things. So this is the Eightfold Path with right speech. But then, as I mentioned to you, there's other teachings that plug into the Eightfold Path. And here, this one on the bottom is called the 5 Factors of Well-Spoken Speech. This is something that you would like to learn and practice more and more closely. After you've already purified your mind and you're no longer doing the lying, slander, harsh speech, and frivolous speech, you'd like to bring in the 5 factors of well-spoken speech more and more. This is giving you a level of detail that the Eightfold Path doesn't have. So what the Buddha is teaching you here is to speak at the proper time. What you say is true, gentle, beneficial, and with a mind of loving kindness. What the proper time is ensuring that you're not interrupting people. If you're interrupting people, it's coming from your craving. You just really can't wait to get in there and say something. You're almost listening in order to respond. You're not listening to understand. You're listening to respond, and you're trying to jump in there ahead of somebody else. So you're going to need to wait your turn and let the person talk, and then when they're done, you speak after them. The other aspect of proper time is making sure your mind is ready to talk. If you're angry, you're bitter, and you're hostile, not the proper time to talk. That's where you'll damage your relationships. So if you ever notice that you're frustrated or agitated or annoyed, it's not the proper time to talk. Just don't even have the conversation. Delay it. Or if you're noticing in a conversation you're starting to get frustrated, step away, give your mind a break, come back in a few hours or a few days and have that conversation later. It's not the proper time to talk. And the third aspect of this is making sure that it's the proper time for the other person to talk. Because if they're angry and they're bitter and they're harsh and hostile, not the proper time to talk. It's better to just end the conversation and move on. Okay, so this is speaking at the proper time. Then there's what you say is true. That's the same thing as the first part where you're not lying. And speaking the truth is also not only not telling a deliberate lie, but also ensuring that anything that you share is the truth, something that you've independently verified through your own direct experience. You're not interested in spreading conspiracy theories and things that you don't know to be true. So you would like to be sure that whatever you're speaking about is the truth. And then speaking gently is the same as the top line where you're not using harsh speech. You're paying attention to your tone, your tempo, and your word choice. This is what you would like to do more and more. You'll find it more difficult to speak gently in relationships that you're really close in. That friend that you had for 20 years, or that life partner, or your children, or your parents, or your siblings, that'll be a lot harder for you. But people like us, like you guys, can talk nice and gentle all day long here because you're not attached to people here, right? But when you have attachment, when you have craving, when you're wanting that friend or you're wanting mom or dad to be a certain way, you'll be harsh. You'll have a really hard time being gentle. So you're going to need to train your mind to get rid of your cravings, desires, attachments so you can bring in your gentle speech. Because being harsh and bitter and hostile in your relationships isn't helping you at all. Right? So you'd like to practice gentle speech. What beneficial speech is making sure your speech is purposeful, that you're clear and concise and you're precise in your communication. It's not just about the topic that you're talking about. There's not like a list of approved topics anywhere. It's about how you speak, that you're purposeful, that you're direct and you're clear and you're concise, that you're not just rambling chit chat, right? Then there's with a mind of loving kindness. The opposite of loving kindness would be inner hate. If you're speaking with a mind of inner hate, it's not going to produce beneficial results for you, right? So you'd like to speak with this genuine interest in seeing all beings be well, active goodwill towards all beings. So you can take something like this and you can reflect on it to see that it's true, because the Buddha is teaching you a natural law. He's saying, hey, if you would like to speak in a way that's going to promote wholesome results for you, this is the way to do it. So what you do is you don't believe this. Instead, you look at conversations that haven't gone well. Look at conversations in your life that haven't gone well and reflect on it through these 5 factors. You and or the other person wasn't using these 5 factors, right? There was at least one of these that you were missing, maybe 2 or 3 that you weren't practicing. And that's why the conversation didn't go well. But then also, you can look at conversations that did go well, and you can see that you were practicing all these 5 factors. And you didn't know what the 5 factors were at the time, but remember, these natural laws are affecting you, whether you're aware of them or not. So when you were experiencing wholesome results in your conversations, it's because you and the other person were practicing these. So now that helps you to independently verify that this is indeed the truth. But now, consciously, start practicing these more and more in all your relationships, because now you know what they are, and you can start practicing them more and more closely, and you'll see your relationships will improve. Because even when you didn't know what these were, and you were practicing them, the conversations went well. But now, consciously practice them in all your conversations, and you'll see your relationships will really improve. What you're working on doing here is developing what the Thai people call barami. This is a Thai word. Barami. What this word means is the one who people listen to. In each village in Thailand, there's usually some village elders that are the ones who people listen to. They have barami. They're very successful in life. And when I say successful, I don't mean financially successful. What I mean is they're really successful in their relationships. They have really good, harmonious relationships. And people in the village know if you're having an issue, go talk to those people. They'll help you out because they're really wise. They know how to talk. They know how to help you. So they have barami. They're the ones who people listen to because they speak very wisely and they can give people help. So if you're interested in being influential in your community, whether it's your family or at work, your job, wherever it is, you need to develop barami. And you develop barami by speaking wisely. And when you speak wisely, over a period of time, 6 months, a year, 2 years, 3 years, more and more people will look at you as the one who's they would like to listen to. You'll be influential and helpful in your relationships. So this is how you do it, is by practicing right speech and establishing barami, the one who people listen to. In the book, there's a lot of details around speech because we communicate a lot. And while during the lifetime of the Buddha, they called it right speech, we might think about it as right communication because we communicate in many different ways. It's not just speech. We have text messages, we have emails, we have social media posts, we have voice messages and all kinds of things that we do. So you're going to need to practice these 5 factors of well-spoken speech in all your communication. Because if you went into a job interview and you did really well in your spoken words, but they got on your social media and they saw you were bitter and harsh and hostile, you're probably not going to get the job, right? Because they can see that, and that's going to be your unwholesome karma coming back to you. So in the book, I go into a lot of detail about each one of these things, and you can read it in there. But if ever there's a time where you just can't remember what the 5 factors of well-spoken speech are, if you can remember to be polite, kind, friendly, and respectful, you would like to practice that. Of course, the Buddha is giving you the level of detail that you need with the 5 factors of well-spoken speech. That's what's going to lead to enlightenment. But in the meantime, as you're still trying to learn that and get better and better at that, try to remember to speak polite, kind, friendly, and respectful in all situations. And also read the book so that you can get more details on right speech, because this is a way that you can harm people. Say you're really angry and frustrated and you go over to your computer and you start pounding out an email. It's not the proper time to be speaking, right? So maybe hit save instead of send, right? Because when you hit send, you're going to regret it later. Just hit save and now go away for a few hours or a few days and come back and read it and decide whether that's an email that you really like to send or not, right? When your mind's more clear and you don't have all that anger in your mind. Okay, so there's a lot of details. This is just a little bit, but there's a lot of details in the book around right speech. Then there's something called right action. Here's the words of the Buddha. In what, monks, is right action? Refraining from taking life, refraining from taking what is not given, refraining from sexual misconduct. This is called right action. So here he's talking about 3 harmful things that you could do with your bodily actions that's going to cause harm, right? But these aren't the only 3 things. These are just 3 really impactful ones. And you would like to be able to ensure that you're not causing harm through any of your bodily actions. Notice that he doesn't say don't walk up to someone and punch them in the face, right? Because he's not giving you an exhaustive list. But if you understand right action, that it's not causing harm through your bodily actions, you know it would be unwise to punch somebody in the face, because they're either going to punch you back, they're going to pull out a knife or a gun, or their friends or their family is going to come attack you, right? That's the results of your decisions. There's a cause and an effect. He doesn't say don't drag your suitcase through the aisle of a plane and run over people's feet and hit their knees, right? He doesn't say that because planes didn't exist during the lifetime of the Buddha. But if you understand this factor of the path, you would know that that would be unwise to do that you pay more attention when you're walking down the aisle of an airplane, right? So here we've got 3 very impactful ones. And you're going to see the 5 precepts that I teach you tomorrow are going to expand this for you. It's going to elaborate and give you more detail around these individual aspects of right action. But I'd like to just focus in on one here to give you guys a heads up. Here you see the Buddha saying, refrain from sexual misconduct. It's important to understand that this doesn't include same-gender relationships, because sometimes people see something like this and they assume that it means same-gender relationships. The Buddha understood same-gender relationships because they were happening during his lifetime too, just like they're happening now. All throughout life, humans have been having sex with the opposite gender, but also the same gender too. Because if everybody was interested in having sex with the opposite gender, that would be permanence. And we understand the universal truth of impermanence. Not everybody's interested in having sex with the opposite gender. Some people have sex with the same gender, and this is normal. So if you're someone who prefers same-gender relationships, or you know someone who does, this is completely normal. The Buddha understood this 2,500 years ago. So when you see what he talks about with sexual misconduct, he doesn't include same-gender relationships, because when you have 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults choosing to have sex with each other, they're not causing harm to anybody. They're 2 loyal, loving, consenting adults having sex with each other. So ever since the beginning of time, males have had sex with males, women have had sex with females, and then there's been opposite gender too, right? Males and females have been having sex. This is all impermanence. But unfortunately in the world, some people's minds crave permanence. So when they see a same-gender relationship couple, they get angry. And this is all coming from their unknowing of true reality. So we're going to talk about this more tomorrow with the 5 precepts, because you can see what the Buddha talks about is harmful sexual activity, like having sex with minors, or raping people, or going outside of your relationships and causing harm that way. So he'll explain this to you more. So this is just like pointing to the 5 precepts, because that's what he's talking about in terms of these things. This here is just a summary of it. So this bodily actions that can cause harm, there's countless things that you could do, right? You could spit on people, you could poke them in the eyes, you could kick people. So this is just 3 very impactful ones, but then you need to apply it to all aspects of your life. He even talks about substances that cause heedlessness and gambling. He talks about many different things in his teachings. So this is right action, ensuring that you're not causing harm through your bodily actions. Then he teaches right livelihood. What a livelihood is how you choose to sustain your life in the world. If you're choosing to sustain your life for an income or a career or an occupation, and you're causing harm through that activity, that harm is going to come back to you. So the Buddha here is teaching right livelihood. He says in the Eightfold Path something very general and very basic. He says, in what, monks, is right livelihood? Here, monks, the noble disciple, having given up wrong livelihood, keeps himself by right livelihood. What a noble disciple is someone who's practicing the teachings closely. Here he just says something very general and very broad, because his teachings on right livelihood are actually quite deep, and they're in other parts of his teachings. So here's one aspect of right livelihood. He teaches to not have businesses in weapons, living beings, meat, substances that cause heedlessness, and poisons, because these are all going to cause harm to other individuals. And you can independently verify this for yourself, just like with all of his other teachings. You can look at situations where either you or other people have done these things, and you can see the harm that comes to them because of it. So let me just take one of them, but then you're going to need to do the work to be able to independently verify all the others. So let's just take business and substances that cause heedlessness. If I was to stand on the street corner and sell crystal methamphetamine into the community, I'm causing harm to the community, right? And now because of that, harm is going to come to me. These people are getting addicted to the substance. They're going out and robbing to bring me money and stealing to bring me money. And now standing on the street corner selling crystal methamphetamine, I could get beat up myself. I could get robbed, I could get murdered, I can get arrested, I can get addicted to this substance. Any number of things can happen to me. And this is all because of my decisions to base my livelihood off of something that's harming other people. Now remember, this is the natural law of karma. It's above and beyond the human laws. The human laws that we create, they're imperfect. They can't be created and administered and enforced fairly amongst all beings. We should always aspire for this to occur, but because human beings are involved, they're prone to mistakes and they're prone to errors. So our government might say, hey, you can go work at that liquor store and you can be a cashier at that liquor store. We're not going to take you to jail for that, right? That's a human law. But the natural law of karma is functioning at a much higher level. If you look at working at a cashier in a liquor store, you're very likely to get beat up or robbed or murdered because people oftentimes go to those kinds of places in order to steal money. So you might come to the conclusion based on the natural law of karma that it would be unwise for you to work as a cashier in a liquor store, even though your government, based on the human law, is saying, yeah, you can go do that. We won't arrest you. But you're still going to experience the natural law of karma of cause and effect or action and result. At the very least, you're going to be dealing with, in some cases, intoxicated clientele. Right? They're going to be coming in drunk and intoxicated, working at that liquor store, and now you've got to deal with that, right? So if you're looking to get to a peaceful and joyful life and a peaceful and joyful mind, you're going to need to look at these livelihoods and decide, based on what you're currently doing, are you doing any of these? Because if you're doing any of these, it's going to be causing harm, and now you're going to be hindered from being able to experience a peaceful and joyful mind and a peaceful and joyful life. The Buddha goes beyond this, and he also explains how to conduct your livelihood, because what he's guiding you to is to have a very successful life and a very successful livelihood. And he talks about how you conduct your livelihood. Here he talks about scheming, flattery, hinting, belittling, and pursuing gain with gain. What scheming is like corruption, right? So let's just say I was a politician. It's not one of those 5 wrong livelihoods. I'm not causing any harm by being a politician. If I was making laws or I was the mayor of a town or something like this, I'm not causing any harm. I'm there to help people. But if I was corrupt when I was doing it and I was scheming, now I'm causing harm. 10, 15 years into my career, people find out that I've been corrupt, and now they won't reelect me and I can't get another job. Because I've been scheming, I've been corrupt, and now people aren't interested in hiring me. And now it affects my ability to sustain my life. What flattery is where you're giving insincere comments to just try to get people to buy things from you. If you were flattering somebody and trying to get them to buy things from you, they can see through that. If you've ever gone to a store and as soon as you walk in the store, they're like, oh, you're so handsome, or oh, you're so beautiful, or oh, I like your earrings. Right away, you're just turned off. You're not even interested in buying something from that place, right? And that's what you're not interested in doing, is just flattering people. What hinting is not being clear and concise and precise in your communication at work, that if you're going in to, say, brief your boss on a particular project, you would like to be clear and concise and precise in the way that you communicate. And this is going to promote a better livelihood for you. What belittling is talking down or degrading or disparaging ways about the people in your work environment, whether it's your coworkers, your boss, your business partners, your competition. If you're degrading your competition, this is not going to look good for you. Your customers aren't going to be interested in doing business with you because you're degrading other people. So you're not interested in belittling. What pursuing gain with gain is this is just taking on a job in order to make money. That's it. You don't really care about the product. You don't really care about the service. You're just doing it for money. And if you've ever had that kind of job, you probably dragged yourself to work each day, and you probably despise going to work. You didn't really have much enthusiasm. You didn't have much ambition. You were just showing up for a paycheck each day. So what the Buddha's guiding you to is to get to the point where you have enthusiasm and motivation, encouragement and ambition in your livelihood, that this is like an extension of what you do on a day-to-day basis, that you so thoroughly enjoy this work that you're doing that even if you didn't get paid for it, you'd probably still figure out a way to do that work because you just enjoy it that much. That's what you would ultimately like to get to. Of course, you're going to need to make money in order to sustain your life, but you would like to get to the point where you so thoroughly enjoy what you do on a day-to-day basis that even if you didn't get paid for it, you'd still do it because you enjoy it that much. So it's an activity that you enjoy going to. If you're not currently in that kind of job and you need to switch, okay, that's what you're going to need to do. Or if you're not employed right now and you're looking to get a job, there's more for you to learn. Because what I just shared with you, this is what's called the first fold of purification. There's a second fold of purification for your livelihood. And if you would like to look at this, it's in volume 12, chapter 14. If you look in this book series under volume 12, chapter 14, if you're unemployed or you're looking to change your job, you would like to look at that because that's where you're going to see the full teachings of the Buddha on how to select a right livelihood. This is just the first fold of purification. So if you'd like to see more detail, just go to that part of the book, volume 12, chapter 14. That's what you'd like to go to, and that'll help you to be able to select a livelihood that you feel good about, and that way you'll have ambition and encouragement and motivation going to work each day. Okay, so this is the right livelihood. Now, just to summarize that, right speech is to ensure you're not doing any harm through all your verbal conduct, but also all your other communication too, like text, chat, post, emails. All of this should be harmless, practicing those 5 factors of well-spoken speech. Then you would like to practice right action where you're not causing harm through your bodily action, because any harm you put out is just going to come back to you. So you would like to ensure you're not causing harm through your bodily actions. Then there's right livelihood, ensuring that you sustain your life through decisions that aren't harmful to others. And the Buddha gives you guidance on that. But ultimately, you'd like to get to this point where you have enthusiasm and ambition around your livelihood. Okay, so any questions on any of the moral conduct section, right speech, right action, or right livelihood? No questions? Okay, let me check online here. Oh, we got a lot of discussion here going on. A lot of things. So someone's asking, do I always teach at the same time? No, I don't, because that would be permanence. There's some days where I'm teaching and some days I don't. But right now I'm going to be teaching every day up until Sunday, and I start at 9 a.m. and I'm going to go all the way until 3 p.m. and this is Thai time. So you're welcome to tune in live, or you're also welcome to watch the replays as well. Okay, I'm not seeing any other questions there, just a lot of comments. So what I do is I will answer questions, but I don't address comments. But if you guys have any questions, you're welcome to ask those questions. Okay, so one person is asking about the book. You can find the book on buddhadailywisdom.com. From there, you can download it for free. You can take it and go print it. You can order it on Amazon if you have access to Amazon, or you can get it here at the temple by just reimbursing us for our printing cost. Okay, I'm not seeing anything else. So let's go into the next part, which is the mental discipline. So we've already gone through this first part. Now I'm going to be teaching you right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. This is going to help you understand how to now train the mind and control the mind so that you can actually implement the moral conduct. All of these steps, you're not mastering one before you move on to the other. You're actually practicing them all at the same time. So that's what you would like to be able to do, is develop all of these at the same time and dial them in closer and closer, because they're supporting each other and helping you to practice them. So now let's talk about right effort. So I'll read this to you and then I'm going to break it down. What the Buddha is teaching you here is, in what, monks, is right effort? Here, monks, a monk rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to prevent the arising of unarisen, evil, unwholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to overcome evil, unwholesome mental states that have arisen. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states. He rouses his will, makes an effort, stirs up energy, exerts his mind, and strives to maintain wholesome mental states that have arisen, not to let them fade away, to bring them to greater growth, to the full perfection of development. This is called right effort. Okay, so he's talking about 4 things here, applying effort to do these 4 things. And I'm going to explain these to you, and I'm going to give you examples. The first one that he's talking about is preventing unwholesome mental states from coming into the mind. There's certain unwholesome mental states that are not currently in your mind right now, and you're going to need to apply the effort to prevent those from ever coming into the mind. One example could be that you're not interested in killing another human being. Not something even remotely in your mind right now. And what the Buddha is saying is apply right effort to prevent that kind of thing from ever coming into the mind. And there's other things like that aren't in your mind right now. And you're going to need to apply the effort to prevent those from ever coming into the mind. But then the second one is that there's certain unwholesome things that are currently in your mind. And you're going to need to apply the effort to eliminate those and abandon those and get those out of your mind. Some examples might be if you're in a current relationship and you're having a craving for sexual contact outside of that relationship, you're going to need to prevent that, you're going to need to eliminate that from continuing to exist in the mind. You're going to need to cut it off and let it go and get rid of it out of the mind. Or say you have anger and frustration and irritation that's arising up in the mind. You need to be able to cut that off and let it go and eliminate it out of the mind. This would be to abandon unwholesome mental states that have arisen in the mind. And there's going to be others too. These are just some examples. Then you're going to need to produce unarisen, wholesome mental states to arise in the mind. There are certain wholesome mental states that you're going to learn about on this path that are not currently in your mind. And you're going to need to apply the effort to bring those into the mind. One of those might be generosity. You're going to hear about generosity and how this trains your mind to let go, that it helps you to eliminate craving, desire, attachment. So if you're currently not a generous person, where you find it very challenging to share with other people, you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into your mind. Because an enlightened being isn't selfish. You're going to need to learn how to share with other people without any expectation of anything in return. Then there's something called compassion that you're going to learn about. This is the concern for the misfortune of others, where you have concern for their misfortune. Not worry and not indifferent, but concern for others' misfortune. Well, maybe you find yourself to be pretty indifferent. When you see someone suffering, you're like, so what? I don't care. That's them. It's not me. If you notice that, you're going to need to bring that into the mind. You're going to need to arise this wholesome mental quality into your mind so that you can learn to be more compassionate, where you have concern for the misfortune of others. Then the fourth one is any wholesome mental states that are currently in the mind. You're going to need to support those, encourage them. Don't allow them to fade. Bring them into the mind more and more. Bring them to full growth and full perfection of development. An example of that might be loving kindness. The opposite of loving kindness is anger. So you probably have loving kindness in your mind, where you do have an interest in seeing other people be well. But in some situations, you're angry, you're bitter, you're harsh. So your loving kindness hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection, where every single being in the world, you have loving kindness for them. So you're going to need to apply the effort to arise that in your mind. Or sympathetic joy. What this is where you have joy for others' success even though you didn't contribute to it. So this is like the opposite of envy or jealousy. So maybe in some situations, somebody says like, hey, I'm going on this new vacation. I'm going to Thailand. You're like, oh, that's great. I've been to Thailand too. That's wonderful. You're going to have a great time. Enjoy yourself. You're pleased for their success. But maybe when you're at work and you're applying for a promotion and somebody else is applying for a promotion and they get the job instead of you, Maybe you're jealous. Maybe you're envious. That's because your sympathetic joy hasn't been brought to full growth and full perfection. So you're going to need to apply the effort to bring that into the mind more and more and more, and develop it and encourage it to grow more and more in the mind. So these are the 4 aspects of right effort. You're going to need to apply the effort to prevent unwholesome qualities from coming into the mind, to eliminate unwholesome qualities that are currently in the mind, to bring in the wholesome qualities that aren't in the mind yet, and any wholesome qualities that are in the mind, you're going to need to support them, encourage them, and bring them to full growth and full perfection. This is called right effort. And the examples that are unique to you are going to be unique to you. These are just examples that I'm helping you to understand how to apply right effort, but you're going to need to figure out what are the wholesome things and what are the unwholesome things. And you're going to need to cut that out, eliminating the unwholesome and bring in the wholesome. And the Buddha is going to help you to be able to see what those things are. Okay, the reason or the way that you practice right effort is you practice it through right mindfulness. If it wasn't for right mindfulness, you wouldn't be able to practice right effort. So again, I'm going to read this to you, and then I'm going to teach it to you. Here, what the Buddha is saying is, in what, monks, is right mindfulness? Here, monks, a monk resides, reflecting on body as body, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on feelings as feelings, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mind as mind, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. He resides reflecting on mental objects as mental objects, dedicated, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside craving and worry for the world. This is called right mindfulness. Okay, so here he's talking about 4 things. But generally, let's just talk about mindfulness in general. What mindfulness is in general is just awareness of mind. And you would like to practice that more and more. That oftentimes in the unenlightened state, we're not really aware of what's going on in our mind. We're just plowing through the world, knocking down trees, burning up the forest. We kind of look behind us. We're like, who lit the fire? I smell smoke. How'd all those trees get knocked down? Well, it was you that did those things. You just don't realize it because you didn't have mindfulness. You weren't aware of the mind. So you might just hang out with this for a while. Just practice mindfulness. And you're going to need to be aware that people in the world are using this word mindful more and more, but they're not using it in the way that the Buddha taught it. They might say, can you mindfully carry this phone to that table? What they're really saying is, can you carefully carry this phone to the table, right? They're not talking about what we're talking about here. What we're talking about is awareness of mind. So how other people choose to talk about mindfulness is up to them, but you're going to need to get more and more in touch with what the Buddha taught so that you can understand what he's talking about is having awareness of the mind. You're going to need to be aware of the various things in the mind. Then, as you get going with your practice more and more, you're going to need to develop what's called the 4 foundations of mindfulness, where you're aware of the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. What we're talking about here is the life cycle that discontentedness is going to follow when you start getting angry or frustrated or sad. If you have craving, desire, attachment in your mind, those pleasant feelings, painful feelings are neither painful nor pleasant. Before it becomes a feeling in the mind, there's going to be some bodily sensation that's occurring first. You might have noticed this already. Before you get angry, there might be this tingling in the body, some tightening in the chest, some tightening in the throat, maybe some heat in the face or pressure in the skull. If you're not aware of these things now, you're going to need to become aware of this, because this is your early warning system that, hey, you're about to get angry. You're about to get frustrated. You're about to get irritated or annoyed. There's going to be some bodily sensation. Even those pleasant feelings, they have a bodily sensation too. Might be tingling across the shoulders, up the back of the neck, over the head. The tingling sensation, those warm fuzzies that you're feeling, that's alerting you that, hey, you're about to get a conditioned pleasant feeling, right? So you would like to understand this and be able to see this more and more closely, because what you need to do is you need to cut off and let go as a bodily sensation. If you allow the mind to form a conditioned feeling, it's going to dwell in that conditioned feeling, and you're just going to keep experiencing it over and over again. So we're not suppressing our feelings here. Sometimes that's what people think when I describe cutting off and letting go as a bodily sensation. Instead, what you're doing is you're cutting it off and letting it go before it becomes a feeling. So essentially your mind's like, I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. I'm about to get a conditioned feeling. And you're like, nope, I'm not going to let you do that. So that bodily sensation, it's like an early warning system alerting you that you're about to get a conditioned feeling. And you have some time to take action and cut it off and let it go. If you miss it as a bodily sensation, it will become a feeling. And now as a feeling, you can still cut it off and let it go there too. But you'd like to get it more and more as a bodily sensation. It's kind of like if you were in a boat going from Australia to Indonesia and you're out in the middle of the water, you'd like to prevent the water from ever coming into the boat. Because once the water gets in the boat, you got a real problem to deal with. You got to get rid of this water, right? So if you allow the anger to come into the mind as a feeling, you got a real problem to deal with now. You got to get rid of it. But if you can cut it off and let it go before it becomes a feeling, hey, you just protected your mind. It's smooth sailing from Australia to Indonesia, right? So you would like to cut it off and let it go as soon as possible as a bodily sensation. But because your mind is not fully trained, you are going to experience some conditioned feelings between now and the time you get to enlightenment. So if you notice it as a feeling, cut it off and let it go there as well. But if you miss it as a feeling, it's going to now affect the condition of your mind. Have you ever been angry or irritated for like a few hours or like a day or two or like a week or two? Gary's shaking his head. Yeah, of course you have, right? That's because you didn't know this. You lacked this wisdom. It became a bodily sensation, went right into the feelings, and now for an hour, for a few days, for maybe a week or so, you're agitated, you're annoyed, you're frustrated. This is because you didn't know that cut it off and let it go as a bodily sensation. And you didn't cut it off as a feeling. And now it's affecting the condition of your mind for a few hours or a few days or a week or two. So you can cut it off there too as a condition of your mind. Because if you don't, it's going to now feed what's called a mental object. What a mental object is a deeply rooted container in the mind, like ill will, for example. You're going to keep feeding that ill will, and it's going to become more and more deeply rooted in your mind. You're going to become more and more angry and more hateful because it's affecting the condition of your mind, and now it's feeding this mental object. So what you're doing is you're essentially putting this roadblock at the bodily sensations, and you're saying, I'm going to cut it off and let it go there, and now you're going to purify your mind and uproot these mental objects out of the mind. When we talk about purifying the mind, that's what you're doing is you're getting rid of all these mental objects in the mind. You're uprooting them out of the mind and eliminating them from the mind. And you can't do that if you keep allowing the mind to experience these conditional feelings. So when the mind's like, I'm about to get a conditioned feeling, I'm about to get a conditioned feeling, I'm about to get a conditioned feeling, what are you going to do? Cut it off and let it go, right? You got to cut it off and let it go. That's what you'd like to do. Get more and more attentive with that. Because once the mind forms that conditioned feeling, it's like, I got what I wanted. It's so pleasurable. Oh, I'm going to hold on to this forever. Oh, this feels so great, right? But now when that condition changes, now your mind's going to experience the painful feelings. So you need to be able to see the conditional pleasant feelings as just as much of a problem as the painful ones. Because when you allow your mind to get a conditioned pleasant feeling, that condition is not permanent. So now when that condition changes, your mind's going to end up in the painful feelings. So if you get so excited that your mom called you and she said she's going to come over and visit you on Friday because she heard you got that new apartment, that new condo, you're so excited that she's going to come visit you. Well, then when she calls you on Thursday night and says, hey, there's been a change of plans, I can't come, you're going to get angry. You're going to get frustrated. You're going to be agitated because you allowed your mind to get that conditioned pleasant feeling based on the condition that mom's coming. And now because of impermanence, mom's got something else she needs to do. It's not that she doesn't love you. She just has something else she needs to do. So now when that condition changes, you're going to be angry and frustrated. And this is happening with so many things in your life. You get so excited that it's sunny outside. And now when it rains, you get frustrated. You get so excited that that friend's going to do something for you. And now when they don't do it for you, you get angry or frustrated, right? So you need to be able to see the conditioned pleasant feelings as just as much a part of the problem as the painful ones. And when you get rid of these conditioned feelings where the mind is forming a feeling based on some condition, now you can experience the unconditioned joy, the unconditioned happiness, where the mind is just always happy. It's always joyful. But as long as you allow the conditional happiness to exist, you're going to also experience the conditional painful feelings of sadness and anger and those other feelings. So you got to get rid of all this conditioning where the mind is wanting to form this conditioned feeling. So you cut it off as a bodily sensation. So this is mindfulness or awareness of mind. You might just hang out with the awareness of mind for a while, but then more and more through what we're about to describe, you develop these 4 foundations of mindfulness. So this is right concentration. This is the Buddha describing what's referred to as the jhanas. The jhanas are preliminary phases that your mind goes through before you get to the first stage of enlightenment. Here in the Eightfold Path, he's not describing how to practice right concentration. He's describing the results, that if you practice the entire Eightfold Path, this is what you're going to start to experience. And you can read through this and you'll learn it at different times in the different courses that I teach you. And you'll be able to see as you're training your mind that you're going to start experiencing these qualities. Okay, so I teach those at other times. What a jhana is the preliminary phase that your mind experiences on its way to the first stage of enlightenment. And this is like the light bulb is flickering and giving you an indication that you're putting together the Eightfold Path really well. And this is your indication that, hey, things are going really well with the Eightfold Path. Now let me start focusing on the fetters and start eliminating those. Okay? But I'm going to show you how to practice right concentration, because the Buddha teaches that in other parts of his teachings. But here he's just showing you the results of practicing the Eightfold Path. So I'm not going to read that to you. What I'm going to do instead is teach you how to practice right concentration. And this is based on the words of the Buddha. He teaches you this. He teaches to practice daily meditation and to practice singleness of mind. This is how you get to right concentration, because you're going to need concentration to be able to practice things like right speech. How could you ever bring in right speech if you don't have concentration? So the breathing mindfulness meditation and the loving kindness meditation, this is going to help you to develop the concentration in your mind. Of course, getting rid of the craving, desire, attachment with breathing mindfulness meditation, that's going to help you to be focused, because when you're on the breath and the mind moves off the breath, you're cutting it off and letting it go, training your mind to let go. Because the craving, desire, attachment is the mind's holding on. It doesn't want to let go. So you would like to let go and bring the mind back to the breath, so that with your right mindfulness, you can train your mind to let go, let go, let go. So when you're focused on the breath and the mind moves off the breath, you're letting go, letting go, letting go. The goal of this meditation isn't to eliminate your thoughts. The goal is to train your mind to notice that you've had a thought sooner and sooner, and to let it go easier and easier. So that now, if 20, 30, 50 times during your meditation you had to let go, this is very good for the mind. Because with craving, desire, attachment, with clinging, your mind's going to want to hold on. That's why when you're getting angry, you can't let go. That's why the mind's still angry. So if you're learning a meditation that they're teaching you to label things or hold on or look at your thoughts or experience your feelings, they're not training your mind to let go. You've got to train your mind to let go. That's why this meditation, the Buddha taught you to let go, let go, let go. So there's meditation out there in the world that the Buddha didn't necessarily teach. And oftentimes people are doing things that are exactly opposite of what they need to be doing. So with breathing mindfulness meditation, the Buddha taught you to train your mind to let go. You're developing mindfulness and awareness of mind, and you're developing concentration to be able to focus and train your mind to let go. The loving kindness meditation is training your mind to eliminate anger. We're going to talk more about this tomorrow. You'd like to ultimately build up to 2 or 3 meditation sessions for 30 minutes or more. And it sometimes takes 6 months, a year, even 2 years to build up to this. So gradually build up to this. That if you're doing meditation the way that the Buddha taught, it's very challenging. Your mind's going to be quite challenged. So getting up to a 30-minute time frame might be kind of challenging for you, depending on where you are in your practice. But just take your time. You're not in a race. You're not in a competition with anybody. It's your own independent practice. So you gradually build up to 30 minutes or more for 2 to 3 times a day. And this could sound like a lot for some of you, but that's because there's probably unbeneficial things that you're doing in your life right now that if you clear those things out, you'll have space for meditation. If you're looking at YouTube 3 hours or 5 hours a day, or you're searching social media for that amount of time, you've got some extra time. You just got to clear those things out a little bit, right? So maybe 15, 20, 30 minutes on social media, right? And maybe spend some other time on meditation and learning the teachings of the Buddha. So this is the first part of right concentration, is developing a daily meditation practice. Then the second part is practicing singleness of mind in daily life. This is where you only allow the mind to do one thing at a time. If you've ever been taught to multitask, the mind actually can't multitask. It's not possible for the mind to do more than one thing at a time. What you're really doing is you're bouncing around from thing to thing to thing to thing to thing. So if you're like talking on the phone, you're eating a sandwich, and you're watching TV, you're not actually doing all 3 of those things. You're talking on the phone to mom for like 3, 5, 10 seconds. Your mind's rapidly cycling to the TV, and now you're rapidly cycling to the sandwich, and you're eating that. And now your mind's rapidly cycling like this. And now this phone call that would have otherwise been about 10, 15, 20 minutes is a 45-minute call. And when you get off the phone, you can't even remember what you talked about. And you might even have to call mom and apologize for something unwise that you said. Or you need to ask her, Mom, what was that I agreed to again? I forgot. I know I agreed to do something for you, but I forget what it was, right? So the mind thinks with multitasking that you're actually doing more and you're accomplishing more. But in reality, you're actually making things worse because your mind's rapidly cycling like this, and you can't be focused and you can't be concentrated, right? So you would like to just do one thing at a time. If you're talking on the phone to mom, just talk on the phone to mom, right? Been there, done that, did a really good job, used right speech, nothing to clean up. You remember what it is that you talked about and you go off in your day. If you're watching TV, you just do that. Or if you're eating a sandwich, you just do that. Whereas if you go to work and your mind is bouncing around to all these different things, when you get home, you'll find it very hard to relax. Because when you get home, your mind has been used to bouncing around all day at work, that you find it very hard to be relaxed at home. It's kind of like a racehorse. If a racehorse is racing around the racetrack all the time, when it goes into the stall, it can't calm down. It's really hyped up. And that's what your mind's doing. If you're 8, 10 hours a day, 12 hours a day doing that multitasking or attempting to do it, your mind's all hyped up and you can't calm down. So you like to do just one thing at a time. You're in that business meeting and your boss is talking and you start wandering and you start thinking about that trip to Thailand and how much fun it's going to be. You cut that off and let it go, and you bring your mind back to the conversation that you're in. You're washing dishes and you're thinking about some other thing. Cut that off and bring it back and just do one thing at a time. So between your meditation and practicing singleness of mind in daily life, you'll fine-tune your mind, and more you'll be focused and concentrated. It's kind of like if you took a piece of wood and you took a steel rod and you were grinding the steel rod back and forth. Initially, it's going to bounce around a lot because there's no groove yet, right? So when you first start practicing these things, your mind's going to bounce around a lot. But when you do it more and more, you're going to get a deeper and deeper groove, and the rod's less and less likely to pop out. And when it does pop out, you'll be able to easily bring it back. But eventually, you're going to get such a deep groove that this rod's never going to pop out. And your mind will just always be focused, and it'll just always be concentrated. But you can't do that if you're not practicing right concentration. And you're going to need this right concentration to bring all the other factors into practice. Okay, so this is right concentration. The summary here is that with right effort, you would like to take the initiative to eliminate unwholesome aspects of the mind and to cultivate the wholesome qualities of the mind. You would like to apply the effort to do this. It's not going to just happen naturally. You can't just naturally become enlightened. You can't fluff off certain things. You got to apply the effort to do this. There needs to be dedication, determination, and diligence. Then there's right mindfulness. This is awareness of mind, like we talked about, having awareness of the mind, but more specifically, the 4 foundations of mindfulness: the bodily sensations, the feelings, the condition of the mind, and the mental objects. You'd like to become aware of these more and more. The meditation is going to help you to do that, but you need to practice in day-to-day life. The bodily sensations we're talking about is not just the itch. We're talking about those ones that are prior to the mind experiencing a feeling. Based on certain cravings in your mind, whether it's pleasant feelings, painful feelings, or neither painful nor pleasant, there's going to be some bodily sensation. Like when we talk about shyness, we'll talk about like butterflies in the stomach or queasiness in the stomach. That's the bodily sensation that your mind's about to get shy, right? So there's certain bodily sensations that are occurring prior to the mind becoming discontent, and you'd like to clue into those more and more. So it's the bodily sensations that you like to cut off and let go of. But if it becomes a feeling, cut it off there. And then if you're noticing the condition of the mind is being affected, you'd like to cut it off there so you're not feeding these mental objects. So say, for example, you're watching the news and you're noticing the frustration building as you're sitting there on the sofa, and you can feel it coming. Hasn't entered into the mind yet. You can just feel it coming. Turn off the news. Go for a walk. Don't allow the mind to sit there and dwell in those discontent feelings, because it's going to stay wired. The mind's going to stay wired to have these conditional feelings. You're trying to break that up. You're trying to transform the mind. So don't allow the mind to sit there and dwell in those conditioned feelings. Cut it off before it becomes a conditioned feeling. That's the right effort. Then there's right concentration, which is practicing meditation and developing singleness of mind until the point that you start experiencing the jhanas, which are the preliminary phases that you'll experience as the mind's developing the Eightfold Path. And you're going to learn more about the jhanas in some of the other classes that I teach. But here I'm just giving you the foundation, because once you get all of this underway, then you'll start experiencing the jhanas. So this is the mental discipline section of the Eightfold Path. And this mental discipline section is then helping you to practice the moral conduct. And it's all based on the wisdom. The way that you might see this Eightfold Path is that if you had a speaker system and you had these 8 dials and you were trying to dial these dials in to get a better and better quality sound out of the speakers, that's what you would like to do, is tweak these dials more and more and more until you get that perfect sound coming out of the speakers. Well, the same thing is true about your mind, is you can tweak these 8 dials, dialing them in closer and closer to your life, and you'll see the condition of your mind gradually improving because you're tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. So right now, you need to learn right view and practice that more closely, but then you're going to need to practice all these other factors too. All at the same time, you're tweaking these more and more. So your mindfulness and your right effort and all that mental discipline section, it's going to help you practice the moral conduct, right? Because it's going to be very hard for you to have right speech and speak gentle if you haven't trained your mind. So all of these things are working together. Okay, so this is the Eightfold Path. This is the core central teaching of the Buddha, and this is what's going to lead to your complete elimination of craving, desire, attachment, and the elimination of discontentedness. So any questions here on this particular section, mental discipline, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration? Jack has a question?
Yeah, just a quick one. Has all this Eightfold Path, was that the original Buddha, or has it evolved over the years to add things to it?
This is from the Buddha originally, because whatever he did to get to enlightenment, that's what it takes to get to enlightenment. He described the natural laws, and those don't change. So there's no addition or subtraction to the teachings of the Buddha, because everything he taught, he's describing those natural laws that existed during his lifetime. There's no need to modify his teachings. And he talks about this during his lifetime. He says that if somebody changed his teachings, it would be for their harm and the harm of countless other people. Because now what a Buddha does to get to enlightenment, it's the same things that you need to do to get to enlightenment. So if we changed anything, it would be for your own detriment or for the detriment of many people.
Those are natural laws as he discovered them.
Yes.
But maybe there were some natural laws that he was unaware of himself.
He would have discovered all these natural laws, because you get to a point where your mind is so peaceful and so joyful, you know that you figured it out. And now you've attained what's called final knowledge. And now this final knowledge has led to your enlightenment, what we call right wisdom. And now that you've accumulated that wisdom, you'll know that this is what it takes to get to enlightenment. And now he described that. So there isn't anything about these natural laws that he didn't figure out, because otherwise he wouldn't have gotten to the peace and the joy.
Okay, thanks.
Yep. Okay, so I'm not seeing any other questions anywhere. So what I'm going to do here is just end by thanking you guys for all your questions and for the discussion. It's basically 12:15, and we're going to get back together today at 1:30. Are you guys okay with an hour and 15-minute lunch break? Nobody's attached to the hour and a half? Nobody's craving that? Nobody's going to be angry or frustrated, right? Okay. So you guys see, you're not attached to that. So that's good. So we're going to get together at 1:30. And when we pick it up, I'm going to be teaching you guys more about meditation, and we're going to do meditation together. So enjoy your lunch, and we'll see you guys afterwards. Okay. Sawadee kap. Sawadee kap.